Okay, welcome everybody this morning. Just like to add to note that Councillor Shea is joining us. He is online. Good morning, Jeffrey. Oh, got the hand up. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Please, if we could rise, we'll take a moment of reflection. Thank you. Ms. Ashley, anybody that is joining us, can you give us the update on the IT?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Eccles, before I begin, at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID for this meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. Both members of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Will be raising their hands physically to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is taking place across two meeting platforms, both on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation, if any, must be done through Zoom, cannot be done through YouTube at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Noble. I'll ask for any of the members, is there any declaration of interest or general nature thereof? I think I got that right. We don't need the pecuniary anymore, according to some individuals. Legal reflection. Very good. It does arise, can be declared at any time. Today's meeting is dealing with the budget. Staff reports is first number 4.1. And Director Mighton, I believe this is your show. Gary?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So the high-level summary that we've provided today provides a breakdown of the operating budget increase to maintain service levels at status quo. It's just over $1.041 million or 7.3%. We are estimating that 1% tax levy increase is about $143,500. So it does show wages and benefits, insurance, various contracts, increase to our financing costs for finishing the construction of our police building and getting our tax levy up to a level where it should be the final payback. And then there's a few other expenses that we're increasing, which we've noted there, but that provides us with a total starting point of 7.3%. So just wanted to give you that high level before we go into some of the additions to additional requests for consideration in the next report.
Any questions or comments? I thought maybe I was reading it wrong. I thought it was the other way around. I discussed this with Carrie yesterday. I thought it was a 3.7 and she had just inverted the numbers there. But she assured me that that number was what she had compiled. Councillor Hutchison.
So given that we're at 7.3% already, so there's no room for fluctuation or adjustments within that operating. I understand it means that in order to maintain the status quo, but 7.3 seems high compared to inflation at 2 or 3, maybe, sort of thing. So is there any room for movement in any of those departments?
Here.
The wages and benefits with an estimated cost of living and some grid movement puts it at 3.3%. and your financing, increasing that 1.7% or 250. So there is 5% of your increase there. Insurance and contracts, we've just estimated, we don't have the actual insurance renewal yet, but some of those are locked in, so there's not much flexibility there. If you want, unless you want to look at changing service levels, there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. There might be some adjustments in revenues, but the both ins and outs, as an example, waste management, with the change to producer responsibility, we will be losing provincial revenue. So other revenues that we may increase it we're estimating to be a net zero impact with any other increases there, with the revenues that we'll be losing in the grant funding from the used to be the old Stewardship Ontario, Waste Diversion Ontario, but that will be, I believe, winding up with this as the last year from everything that I've seen. So.
Okay, Doug? Anybody else? Joyce, Councillor Noon.
Thank you. I know we have a meeting coming up with the wage evaluations being prepared. I'm wondering if any way we could wait on hearing that proposal before we move forward with the estimated cost of living increase for wages and benefits. It's just a consideration.
Thoughts, Carrier?
This is just what we've tried to incorporate something in there, in lieu of that, so that you're not starting at today's numbers, anticipating that there will be change. So that's what we've estimated kind of in there. Once we do have that meeting, we will refine those numbers once those decisions are made, by council as to what gets implemented, if any, with a modified grid or a new grid. But that's what we've sort of put in as an estimate at this point.
Councillor Shay. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. Carrie, these numbers at the bottom, 3.3%, 0.4%, et cetera, those are the increases in this category compared to the previous year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Jeffrey.
So my thinking, like Doug mentioned, that inflation is around 3%. So I look at this and I think, okay, wages went up 3%. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that insurance went up 3% and contracts went up 3% and financing went up 3%. Then I would thought our total budget would have gone up 3%, because each one went up a percentage, but only in its own category.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke there, Jeffrey. The 3.3 numbers, so that would be the percent of tax levy impact on there.
Oh, okay. It's not the increase over the previous.
Right. Yep.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else before we delve down a little further into the numbers? Just want to make a statement, maybe from the chair. I read an article last night from the new CEO of Starbucks. It was interesting. He's come down to 6 words. Starbucks is, the last 2 quarters, they have shown substantial losses. The new CEO's come in, and his comment was, "We have drifted far from our core." And thinking of that, is there anything in here, or where have we have we drifted from our core? When we look towards what we are responsible to do and what we've taken on, obviously. Something that I've considered for a long time, quite a long time. And getting caught in the position of, well, if we don't do it, nobody does it. Well, if we continue to do it, nobody will be able to afford to do it. In our municipality, I guess is the way I look at it. So with that, I'll be putting it out there. That's my lens in looking at the budget this year. How far have we drifted from our core responsibilities? What are we doing to pull us back in? Or is there ability to pull us back in and get back to doing what we core responsibilities, the hard stuff and not the soft, as somebody used to say, the soft, easy stuff, or the feel good. Because right now it's 7.3 without any capital increase. After last year's increase, it's going to be tough, I think. So just as a heads up, that's how I'm going to be looking at it. Is this in our core responsibility, and how far are we going outside of that? Joyce.
Thank you. I know this is meant for us as council, but I guess that 9,351 is at a 3.3% increase as well. Director of Finance.
Yeah, we've applied the same percentage cost of living increase across council and all the staff.
Thank you. I'm willing to recommend that for this year's budget that we eliminate ourselves from that in a form of a recommendation. Maybe I won't get a seconder, but maybe I don't know, what would that impact on that bottom 3.3%, taking that out of the equation?
You'd be at 3.19.
Maybe we're just nickel and diming that, but it's just a proposal I think maybe we should consider. Thank you.
As Carrie said, this is a draft, so I'm not I'd take unless it's a large impact, but keep that point as we go forward, Joyce. That would be a good idea. Carrie?
Yeah, so we at the November meeting, we'll have all the detailed line by line budgets for each department. We'll have the capital as well, and then any of the new initiatives that get approved for us to build a business case for presentation. Any of those details would be in there. So we will have those further, but we're looking for some direction, noting that this would be, we were coming in at 7.3% just to start with, to maintain the current.
Go ahead.
Just another consideration, taking just at 3% versus 3.3, maybe just looking at tweaking it just a little bit. Again, it's just nickel diming, but it just another consideration.
And just the 3.3 is the tax levy impact. The wages do include grid movement as people progress, based on positive performance. So there is a cost of living adjustment to the grid plus grid movement built into that. So it's not just
Cost of living, yeah. Michelle? Ms. Harris?
Thank you. And if I may, I know that how we're presenting the budget this year is a little bit different. It was intentional because you look at this number at 7.3 at our current service level. we need direction on this. If this isn't council's direction, this is your biggest policy direction that you will be providing for the year. So rather than us, it's why the additional considerations are outside of this as well. There's no point in us spending, Carrie putting thousands of pages worth of documentation to you if we look at this at a high level and say we need to make some substantial decisions on this. So the intent, as we said, is depending on the outcomes of today's meeting. The November 12th meeting is where we will be getting into the meat of it and start to make those, or council can start to look at those individual line items and have discussions related to those.
Go ahead, Joyce.
So if we were to recommend that currently right now, we don't want to see in this operational no higher than 5% at this time. Is that something that you would consider looking at and tweak those numbers accordingly? Or do you think we need to wait until the November meeting and then really see what's a need versus a want?
Lady?
Thank you. We were conferring. We can certainly come back with options if it is council's wish to set a number figure. But until we have a target for that, it's even hard for us to come back with those recommendations. On the other hand, if council comes back and says, we don't want, sorry, Jeff, wherever you are, any gravel for next year on our road, new gravel, then that's also a direction. It's ultimately part of what we're trying to understand here is the priorities of council. What are your priorities? What are the most important things? We've talked a lot, I think, individually around wants versus needs. What do we need to run this municipality versus what are the nice to haves? And I think, in fairness, West Grey isn't the only, every municipality I've been talking to is dealing with these same budgetary pressures. There's been a lot sort of over the last number of years across Ontario where things have been pushed back. And we're all starting to understand now that the backlog is coming forward and there are real costs. So those are conversations I think that need to be had at this table, and we're looking for that direction on how you would like us to proceed, and we will come back based on your direction.
Go ahead, Joyce.
I'm glad you brought that item up about crushed gravel, because I know I did speak to the director of Public Works or infrastructure on this line item about that maybe we should consider every third year not applying crushed gravel. But in speaking with him, he did indicate there are areas where it is a need, but every other year that need in those areas isn't provided if gravel is there. But so when we're considering that every third year, maybe we still apply gravel to those areas in need. But other than that, maybe we should make a recommendation that every third year, I think we bypass the gravel application.
Thank you. And I will not speak to the merits and the techniques of gravel crushing because it's not my area of expertise, and Jeff would slap me if I tried. But, there are also, when we start to do this, and these are things that, we need to consider. I think staff try to find operational efficiencies and do things the best they can. But sometimes when you push things off, the cost later is more, either in a decline in the level of the road, so it could get worse, or alternately the cost of materials or the cost of providing that service when you push it back. And I'm not saying we can't, I just think we have to be cautious on that. And I'd like to think that, when when our director of infrastructure comes forward, that he's already looked at efficiencies. I'm not saying we can't, but there's pluses and minuses to all of those kinds of decisions.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Tom, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Echols. Recreation of just wages and benefits, what does that represent? Like another hire there or? Well, through you, Mayor, to, yep, Director Mighton, please.
No, that's no additional staff with the exception of replacing, somebody who's left and backfilling, but no additional staff complement. That would be a cost of living adjustment plus any step movement along the grid for positive performance reviews.
And a follow-up, how many do we have in that department now or under that recreation, if you will, if you know, Director Mighton?
There's two full-time, and the part-time, I don't have off the top of my head, there's eight, I think there's eight, maybe eight. And then, see bartenders that come and, depending on the, rentals. But yeah.
And I apologize, Director Mighton, I didn't mean to kind of put that to you, but it was just the full times I've got, I know that, yeah, fluctuates with the part-time, but okay, so that's just more of a grid movement and obviously an increase is really what we're looking across there to drive that number. Thank you.
It does just seem to be a little bit high. With 8 when you say administration. It's considerably more in this building at 73,000, and then you got 2 full-time recreation people. But is there a couple of other recreational people we're not thinking of in there?
One of the other items is the change in OMERS. Some of them have elected. It is now they have the option. They don't have to reach the number of hours in the previous 2 years. They can elect, should they choose to participate in OMERS right at the start of the time. So that there has been several that have done that as well. And that affects any of our departments with part-time help. That has been a change as well that we've had to implement in there too. Yeah, because that is wages and benefits combined, those totals.
That makes a little more sense. Want to get down into the good stuff that Michelle has from us? Or any more questions on this sheet to start? Michelle did ask a question, maybe you should address that. Is there a comfort level with 7.3? Tom?
No. How we're gonna get there, I don't know, but there's not, because capital is gonna, we just can't do it. I'm not sure what, we'll have to go through it line by line as we get into the next one. Michelle's presentation, and maybe then we can reflect back on some of these numbers, but yeah, I understand the need and everything, but 7.3 before we do anything else, no, there's not a conclusion we can make for that. So, but very difficult to draw a conclusion where what we can look at without looking at some other in detail.
Anybody else comment? Councillor Townsend. Doug.
Thank you, sir. Just a question to Carrie, and I know she won't have the number or have the answer off the top of her head, but something to think about. Where does West Grey fall in the scheme of Grey County as municipalities per 100,000 in taxation? Like, are we middle of Grey County? Are we in the lower end of Grey County? Because I mean, the citizens have to realize too, I mean, unfortunately, over the years, the 0s and 1% things were great, but unfortunately, we've kicked the can down the road too far. Now we've got to pay the piper. And West Grey's got the biggest land mass of any municipality in Grey County, which means we've got the most roads, the most bridges, the most everything to maintain. And if we're at the bottom end per 100,000 in taxation, not that I'm trying to justify a huge increase in taxes, but people have to be realistic also. So just putting that out there.
Anywhere close to that number, Carrie? Alphabetically, we're the last.
Yeah, exactly. We are at the bottom alphabetically. I don't have that, but we can certainly look at it. And I don't know if it's on a per 100,000 value of assessment as opposed to the average house. Because when you're looking at those numbers too, when you're trying to compare us to others, the average home in Blue Mountains would be significantly different than the average home value here. So, you know, you've got to, I think, but we can certainly pull those, the BMA study that the county participates in, I think has those numbers, but I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Mhm. It's always nice, Councillor Townsend, to have that, but yeah. If everybody else is way out of whack, should we get ourselves to that? Yeah. Just a quick question, if I could, to Jeff, Director Aiken. The roads, there's 145,540 in there for wages and benefits. Is that very similar to the rec question? It's grid movement, our part-time or winter guys going on to owners that are part-time, all of those factors?
Yes, it is.
And then the 101,000 is the gravel crush and the calcium increases?
Yes, it is, and anticipated increase for the patrol where we have to purchase gravel. So that's the anticipated impact for the same level of service.
So the gravel crush didn't do any last year, or we've got a big hill we got to take out someplace and we're going to crush a whole bunch?
No, we did not crush gravel last year. The tender for the gravel will be going out shortly, so we'll be able to firm that number up. What we're looking at from an efficiency perspective, when we do the southern ends of the townships, there may be a business case to support crushing enough gravel for Glenelg and Benthic. So hopefully we can do a little bit better on that number as opposed to purchasing the gravel commercially. Yeah, and so in 2024 we crushed no gravel, right? In 2023 we did crush gravel for 2 years, but this would only be a 1-year tender.
We'll get a fair bit out of that hill on 23 in Glenelg, won't we? That'll be free gravel.
The tender for Glenelg Road 23 will be going out probably in February. Part of that road construction project does include a section to evaluate the gravel that is in the road and how easily it would be to convert it to a gravel based on what we go through at our pit. There's a high expectation there. There's a fair bit of gravel there we can make use of. And then the only debate will be, do we crush it on site or do we stockpile and crush it as needed? So that's why the tender is only for 2025 gravel, because during 2025 we'll either late in 2025 or early 2026 we'll be taking that hill out and allow 23 with the assistance of the county.
Okay. Anyone else? Michelle, here's the next report, 4.2. Was there a recommendation on any of that? Oh. Procedurally, my clerk wants a recommendation to receive this for information purposes. Thank you, sir. People's online, as always. Deputy Mayor Tom, to receive for information. Second by Councillor Townsend. Any other questions on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. All right, thank you. Okay. Ms. Harris.
Thank you. Knowing the 7.3 number, staff did not think it best to come forward by adding all of these into a budget that might inflate and make it look like we were recommending massive items for council. However, these are items that have either been identified specifically by council through the strategic plan that have budget implications, or alternately that have been discussed during this past year by council, and or that staff have identified as being something we need to bring forward for council consideration. I suspect, and based on some conversations I've had with council members, there might be some items that we have not included in here that council has talked about throughout the year or have mentioned that they wanted to add to the list. So before we go forward and prepare any business cases, at a high level, we've identified items that you may as council want to prioritize and ask us to bring forward for the 2025 budget consideration. You will note that the recommendations in here are broken into strategic plan items, and the other ones are items that staff have identified. So we've given a very high level summary of what the project or initiative might be, as well as an estimated cost at this point. If council would like us to move forward with these items, we will bring back more fulsome business cases for the November 12th budget.
Anyone have a thought? Gateway signage. I'm just gonna go down through and just go down through the list here and I don't know whether this is for our police department or our fire department to know whether they're in West Gray Road. West Gray. Jamie. Not too far off. Joyce, go ahead.
This is something that I'd like to see move forward. Next year is 25 years since amalgamation, and our signage really looks rough. I think that we need to show a little more pride in our gateways, in our urban areas, and so on and so forth, to blend and make it look like we're all part of West Gray, instead of identifying just without that unity. So it is really something that I like to do, and it is part of our strategic plan. When we develop a strategic plan, I've even thought of in previous years that council's wishes, of course, budget affects it, but we never really seem to make that commitment and get it done. So this is one of those things that maybe we could make move forward. So I'd like to see that one move forward with others' consideration.
Doug? Two.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be nice to be able to get this done, but I just, given our budget constraints. But one of the things that comes to mind is maybe that, to me, this is sort of an economic development thing. Do we not have a fairly hefty reserve in economic development that maybe we could pull this, bring this into that area and not affecting our budget?
Carrie?
There is some economic development reserves. Currently, we've been putting 100,000 per year in community improvement plan projects. They have not uptake. There hasn't been that much uptake this past year, but we did budget to use 100,000 again in the for the CIP program. The draft budget would see taking another 100,000 from the economic development reserves there as well. But if it's something we can certainly, like I said, we'll bring forward, and here's the impact, you know, it's and where the reserves would be at. But we have been strongly leaning into the CIP program with those reserves the last 4 years. Yeah.
We have been putting some money away in that reserve each year. So bleeding out terribly.
No, I don't think you've been putting any money away in reserve. No, there's been no budget allocated for that.
So with that suggestion, will we see what it would be? 75,000 for the CIP program and 25,000 for this signage program? Is that what you're thinking, Doug or Joyce? You can turn on your mic, Mr. Hutchison.
I'm thinking. You don't need to hear me thinking. It's a lot of grinding and going on. However, I just thought that at one time, you know, there was a fairly good reserve there, but it would be 25,000 per year. So if we were dipping into that, it would be 25,000 per year to do the signage, regardless of what's happening with the CIP. And I think the CIP, we had it's not continuous for the next 10 years. Like we had a end game on that, right? So I don't know whether next year is the last year that we had talked about that, or there was an end somewhere along the line.
I don't know that the CIP bylaw program had an expiry. The county support is done as of this year. We were getting 20,000 per year. And we did discuss that at some point, if we continued to only take the CIP program from reserves, that you'd have to fund it from the tax levy or the program. If you don't fund it, then the program is not there, but it's not that the program expires. It's just how much budget dollars, whether it's reserves or tax levy, that we funded.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Just picking up what, through you, Mayor, what Councillor Hutchinson said. So there hasn't been as much uptake, I know, on the CIP this year. So we were funding that solely through, I believe, the economic development reserves is what we allocated that for since the CIP came out. I don't think we put anything into it outside of just reserves. So if there is a decrease in that and there's not as much uptake, to me, we decrease the CIP allocation that we would provide for the grants, if we go through a grant system there, and utilize that money, the savings, to go towards this, and there should be no impact on the levy. other than, is that kind of what your direction was going with that? Because to me, if we lower the amount that we offer for the CIP, because it's obviously there's a decrease in it, in the need, then we could utilize that here and it would be no impact. So I could support that. But I want to make sure what I'm saying is fairly accurate with the Director of Finance. I'm getting the nod, so I'm on the right track. So to me, that would be the way that we could fund the signage here to just decrease when we get to that line item. For in this budget would decrease what our grants are for the CIP, what we would, our contribution be, and take that difference and put it into this, and there'll be no impact anywhere across the boards.
Will we have to insure those signs? Carrie's smiling, she knows what I mean. The one at Priceville's been stolen twice, 3 times. Yeah, something like that anyways. Take it was probably people coming from the east, the beast from the east coming in and anyways. First 2 times, I believe they just took the bolts and cut them off and took the sign. 3rd time, they just cut the whole sign off. Posts and everything were gone the last time. But anyways, I haven't seen it on eBay yet, so we haven't been able to recover them. Tom,
Just through you, Mayor, to our clerk, just so we're clear on how do you want to do that? We're just gonna do a suggestion, then bundle it at the end, or we're gonna do recommendations as we go, just so I'm clear on what direction we want to do.
Three Miracles, procedurally, the cleanest way of doing this would be to propose motions for each item that council wants to consider. So if it's the entry and gateway signage and you want to fund it from the Economic Development Reserve, I could craft something to that effect for inclusion in the draft budget.
Okay, well, I will, if I may, Mayor, I defer to Councillor Hutchinson because he did kind of bring this forward. I just kind of picked up on it. So I don't know, Doug, if you wanted to do one, or I could certainly put a motion, but I'm just respectfully, you did bring that forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I would like to see that move forward. I would like to see maybe some information on the CIP though, in terms of the data on that, in terms of the usage, and just to confirm so that we know, have a better idea going forward for next year. But that's maybe a side thing. We can still do the motion on this. So I'll move it or I'll second it, whatever. You've already moved it.
I think you're moving it.
Okay.
And Joyce, maybe? You want to second that? All right, what have we got?
So Three Miracles, I have that in consideration of staff report 2025 preliminary operating budget year over year. Oh, sorry, additional changes. For budget consideration, council directs staff to include $25,000 from the Economic Development Reserve for entry and gateway signage in the draft 2025 budget.
Good with that, Tom?
It's just moved and seconded. A question about it. So are we going to make reference to the reduction in the CIP grant to offset that, or we don't need to have that in this? Because I think that's how we're going to capture that revenue, the difference there.
Three Miracles, the CIP policy does prescribe what someone would be eligible for. So outside of changing that policy and the eligible amounts, what would be funded, what would not be funded, there would be no way of specifically doing that. So without that. Yeah.
Okay, so, but the CIP is going to come forward for the grants money is what I'm saying. And at that time we can address to decrease what we intend to offer as an incentive, I guess is what I'm trying to identify, capturing this, the CIP funding going in towards this and reducing it, if you will.
Three Miracles, I think to further the point that the Director of Finance made, when the CIP or when the Economic Development Reserve budget is depleted, then we wouldn't have any more funds for CIP. So naturally, if we were to allocate $25,000 from that reserve, there would be fewer dollars for CIP. So eventually that may come to an end just based on the funds being depleted. So if it's not replenished, then it wouldn't be there anymore. So not to say that we'd be reducing the amount that someone would be eligible for, but when that money disappears, then the program would cease to exist essentially.
Thank you, Clerk. So if I may, through you, Mayor Eccles, to Director Mine, when we do bring that item forward in the next meeting, Ms. Wayne, if we could just have an idea what this year's uptake was, and then we can identify that number and go from there. That would certainly help me with my mindset. Thank you.
Councillor Hutch.
Just to clarify that, thinking back to the days when we had an economic development committee, every year when we set our budget, we actually decided how much money we would go forward on that CIP. So I think that now that we don't have a committee, that's going to come back to council. So that would that not be an annual thing where we set the amount for the CIP going forward for each year?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Every year, it's always council's ultimate decision. Even when we had committees, it's a recommendation to council. But that's part of the document in the budget that, yep, if you're committing 100,000, 120,000, we've been committing because we had 20,000 from the county every year. But that is a decision of council every year, how you fund it, if you fund it, and what level you're going to be, the program would have in it.
I think with the discussion that we've had around this, Carrie will show us a couple of options when we get down to that in the November meeting. Okay. Any other questions on this motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Number 2, electronic customer feedback kiosks. Michelle?
Thank you. There is no real explanation here other than this was in the strategic plan. I think part of from my reading of the strategic plan was that there was a desire to make sure we are getting feedback from our public, from our residents, from our businesses. And this was one item there. It would take these kiosks and have them front and center at a community center or an arena. We have talked internally about this. If this is something council wants to explore, we did look at the option of if council chose to fund these, could we then use them when the arenas aren't open in our trucks for servicing? Can we use them for elections? Are there other ways to multi-purpose them? My thoughts are if the outcome desired by council is to have regular opportunities for customer feedback, I suggest we could probably operationalize that through our existing means, but we brought this forward because it was in the plan.
These kiosks be similar to the smiley faces ones that you see in some of the restrooms or whatnot? How did we do today? Where we hit the smiley face or the sad face? You're looking to answer that.
Could I say, could I say no comment? They could be whatever they want, but I truly believe there are other ways to solicit feedback from our public unless council is really gung-ho on having these in our arenas or our community halls.
Deputy Mayor, Tom, please.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and through that strong suggested comment from our CAO, I would move that we don't support this line item. Thank you.
Councillor Hutchison, Doug?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not in support of this. I think the way we need to go is because of many people have these things that we need to make it easier for people to give us feedback. And I think through our website would be one way of doing that. We're doing a revamp there. I would like to see a little button right on the main page says feedback or concerns or complaints or whatever. So the people will do that. I think we don't need to have kiosks, I don't believe, when people have electronic devices that they can give us feedback on. So, thank you.
You're missing the third one. Yeah. Complaints, but compliments.
Oh.
Yeah. 3 Cs. Complaints, concerns, compliments. I think that's the order. Any other comments on the kiosks? Do we have a motion how to handle this? Delete it? Thank you. Probably we say that number 2, the electronic customer feedback kiosks not be considered in the budget at this point in time. Jamie, what's your wording?
Thank you. Three Miracles that in consideration of staff report 2025 additional budget items for consideration, council foregoes including funds for electronic customer feedback kiosks in the draft 2025 budget.
I was being more efficient. Just a couple of words. Get rid of it. Okay. That's the motion. We have a deputy mayor moves that.
Sure.
Yep. And Councillor Townsend would second it. Any further questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Number 3. Economic Development Officer. Cheryl?
Thank you. This was also an item in the strategic plan. I know from discussions with council that this had been a priority. It is in the plan. If that's the case, I recommend that we hire a dedicated economic development officer. We've put it in here for September of 2025 to lessen the budget impact for this year. However, given the budget constraints, I do understand that this may not be feasible for 2025.
Comments, Deputy Mayor Tom?
Miracles. So, yeah, 2025 is 24. Now let's look beyond that and look at 2026. So that's one thing that I'm looking at as an impact. I have to be honest with you. Yes, I'm all about economic development. That's my background is marketing and growth and all that wonderful stuff that comes with it. I just cannot see supporting that. I know it was part of our strat plan. I just can't see the fit for this right now. We have a lot of, well, let's talk about our bridges later, but we've got a lot of infrastructure and an awful lot of other challenges. And I think the shortfall, yes, it's 24 this year, 26, it's a full complement. So unfortunately, I don't think I can support this. And I think maybe we consider looking at maybe revamping our economic development committee that we were working fairly well and we came up with some ideas. Maybe that's an option here to just kind of get through 2025 and then reevaluate 26. So I would not support this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Joyce?
Thank you. I'm not saying we move forward with it in 2025, but maybe if our CAO could look into maybe shared service with another municipality or with the County of Grey to see what kind of numbers that would look like.
Thank you. Economic development, I believe, is critical moving forward. We do, like anything, if something is the side of the desk, it's the side of the desk. That being said, we do work very closely with Grey County. We align very closely with them. The county, though, has also in their 2024 budget reduced economic development staff at the county. So they don't have spare resources, I would argue, to do this. I could certainly look at in 2025 how we achieve our economic development priorities, perhaps through other means. that being said, even when you do something, even if we don't have a dedicated staff person to focus on this, there are sometimes investments that need to be made. Like you'll see the next item, culinary trail development, which is part of economic development, it's part of tourism development. We won't have staff resources. The county is doing some significant work in this field, but sometimes you have to invest some matching money so they can go out and get a grant. Or for the culinary trail, we put some money in there because we thought if we're going to piggyback on the county's new Gather campaign, we might need some window decals or posters or some kind of signage. So not hiring a person does not necessarily, if you still want to focus on the priorities, it doesn't mean there still shouldn't be some investment in some kind of resources. But I'm certainly happy to look at this, but I think this was a pivotal piece of your strategic plan, and I thought the discussion is important to have at this table.
Doug, Councillor Townsend.
Just in realizing that economic development is very important, and unfortunately, it's been sitting on the corner of somebody's desk for a number of years now. How many missed opportunities have we had as a municipality? Because when the economic development officers are getting together and they're seeing potential people that are moving to the area, and our neighbors to the west have an economic person and people to the south have an economic person, and those places are represented. So obviously the investors are, because those people are in the room, are talking to them. How many missed opportunities have we had here in West Grey because we didn't have somebody in that room that was dedicated to it? So I realize it's a cost, but it's a cost of doing business. And if hopefully it would be short-term pains for long-term gains if that position can generate more business, attract more tourists and whatever to West Grey, that it would offset itself in, 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road. Just a thought.
Michelle?
Thank you. If I may respond to that. I think everybody at this table knows economic development is my favorite thing. So I do need to speak to it a little bit. To Councillor Townsend's point, I would argue that economic development is an investment, not a cost. I do believe that over time, the investment in economic development more than pays for itself. However, part of the reason us putting these considerations forward for you to review, we wanted you to look at everything holistically, choices between different business functions within our municipality. I have a background in economic development. I can undertake a lot of this activity. However, in doing some analysis, this municipality has one of the lowest number of employees per 1,000 person population in all of Grey County and among our 15 comparators. We're at the bottom of the list. And if I'm going to die on a hill here, I also spend an inordinate amount of time on human resource matters, joint health and safety matters. And when there's competition among those things, we have to look after the staff and our compliance with human resource legislation. So I might be more inclined to battle really hard for an item that's down the list as human resources, joint health and safety support. And then I might have more time to devote to economic development.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think economic development is something really important and something we've been talking about, if not, this term, the term before, and maybe even the term before that. But it's something we need to do, and I'm not sure how we make it work. But looking at by beginning, have this, looking at 24,000 end of next year, that's, you know, a little less than, or a little more than 1/6 of a 1% increase on our tax base, if you look at it that way. And then the next year it would be getting closer to a 1% tax base maybe, but, I just think it's something that we need to squeeze in somehow. And Michelle is, with her background, can lead us in the right direction, I think, and get something in place. But I'd really like to see us make it work somehow, but realizing where we are in our budget. But I know different times, different people have said to me, you need an economic development person, you need an economic development person, and it keeps coming back on us, and we just keep putting it off and putting it off. So I'd like to see us get it done.
Deputy Mayor.
Big Mayor Eccles. So once again, I arrived back to, you know, I know this council, we don't have committees and all those wonderful working task force and stuff, but I really strongly recommend this is one that we look at. We strike that committee back. And, you know, we're meeting once a month, and I think through the leadership and suggestions and recommendations that Madam CAO can put forward, the committee can get a lot of work done, and a lot of the groundwork, get a lot of the legwork, if you will, get us pointed in the right direction, and you know, see what we can put together, and then you can reconsider in 2026 any DAC officer, but get the foundation back to what we want. So, and that would deviate some of the workload from Madam CAO, I think, through a committee, if you will. And we did have a very active committee. Thank you.
Joyce. Councillor Nunn.
I think that I'm more in favor of Councillor Hutchinson's recommendation, because to get into that room, I think we need someone of management to be there, whether it's at our conferences, or just other events that are hosted throughout the county, to represent us. A committee wouldn't necessarily have that clout, I don't think, that we need it internally. So I would tend to agree with Councillor Hutchinson moving forward that maybe we need to prioritize this and get a staff in place.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and just to go along with that, I agree, the Economic Development Committee was important, and I think it could be something we could use again. I just see this person, we need someone with boots on the ground, someone who's going door to door and has a thumb on what's happening. Like, we need someone pushing our industrial spaces, and the committee is good, but I mean, again, you can't expect volunteers to go around and do a lot of things where they're meeting with businesses and so on, just to get a feel for what's really happening out there. So I like the idea of going back to committee, but I still think that by the end of next year, it'd be nice to have someone in place that can sort of take the bull by the horns and do something for us.
Further, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Eccles. And I think one thing we really need to consider is we better approach Chamber of Commerce, because we do support them. And I think the Chamber of Commerce is, if anyone, has that direct connection with a lot of the businesses in the community. And I think maybe it's time for maybe the chamber to do a little bit of this work as well. As far as, you know, industry, I got industry, you know, that's not what EDAC is not about, residential and all. It's a whole component of tourism, economic, or residential, commercial, industry, everything. We don't have anything shovel ready other than a little bit of property down in Newstead. So forget this going out. It's been said by Steve Furness from Grey County. Shovel ready is what we have to be. If we're shovel ready, they will find what we need. So I don't think, that's why I'm opposed to an economic development officer. I think we need to identify what it is we're trying to sell out there, because we don't really have anything to sell. What do we need? More, a couple small stores downtown Durham? That's not what the focus should be. We need to identify what that role would be. And that's why I think a committee, we strike that back and we start again with some direction. I just can't support it because of all the other problems that we have that we're faced in this budget. And there is a component later on down, which is HR, which is what I'm looking at as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure.
Thank you. If I just may speak to respectfully to the conversation around a committee. I've sat on, been involved in multiple economic development committees. And my experience has shown that while the engagement is good, at the end of the day, there is a lot of staff time required to set agendas, coordinate meetings, and then ultimately the work comes back to staff needing to do it as well. And if we don't have a dedicated resource to do it, if I may, the county, yesterday I spent a morning at Grey County. They are actively looking at the boots on the ground way to engage our business sector across the broad county. So yesterday I was at a small business summit that they hosted. They are going to be having in the coming weeks an agricultural summit, a tourism summit, a manufacturing summit. County has been and working very closely with the municipalities in Grey County, working to align. So those things are hugely valuable, and I think they fill a role. But somebody still needs to be engaged in those conversations. When I was there yesterday, every one of the 9 municipalities in Grey County had a representative there. So I think there's a new way to do business with economic development. I think the chamber has a role, but they only have 2 staff members, part-time staff members for their entire role. They do a lot of work with the merchants in our commercial districts and our downtown districts, less so with our business attraction, making sure that we are market ready for shovels in the ground. I've been doing a lot of work since I've been here talking about what lands have we got, how are we going to attract businesses for those industrial, and that takes time. And I think that as we look at an economic development plan for moving forward, that's where we need to dedicate our resources. So how we do that, whether it's myself by having some other things perhaps redistributed if we can find a way to do that, or a dedicated economic development officer, which, don't kid yourself, I think is highly valuable, but we're at the space now where we need to make choices. But I do think I would just be cautious with the committee. I think they're wonderful in an advisory role, but they're not the ones doing the work. And if we want the work done, somebody still has to do the work.
Thank you. I'll go.
I was just gonna suggest, let's put this on the back burner, move forward, because we're looking at other staff too, and come back to it. Keeping in mind what's been said here, sort of thing, but again, the importance of it, but maybe we move forward and revisit it at a later date.
Okay. Councillor Townsend.
Just a question. If we said, we put a motion forward and we said, yeah, we want to do this or look at this, it doesn't mean down the road we can't pull the plug on it either, does it? Like we're not locking this in. We're simply helping staff to create their next budget meeting. Is that correct?
Effectively, yes. I think what we're doing here is trying to figure out if there is really no appetite for it, they're not going to spend the time putting the business case together to put into the budget for this. If this isn't the time, they can more effectively use their time on things that will get passed. All right. Deputy Mayor said on this one, which is a staffing issue, and there's a couple of other ones, at least one other one here that is dealing with staffing. The impact looks like maybe it's a choice of one or the other. we keep talking about economic development, and Deputy Mayor made a comment about that. You know, I think we've got to get a better idea, or certainly in my mind, what is economic development? Is it retention? Is it recruiting new business? Is it what, and what role really in building the community has the municipality got in this? I mean, reading back through the history book, one of the interesting things I found in the town of Durham, probably 100+ years ago, was to get the railroad extension from the south. They threw in $10,000 at that point in time, which was about 1902 or something of that nature, to get the railway in. Wasn't an economic development officer, but my point is, if you're looking to have business here, provincial policy statement says it's got to be near or in an urban center where services may or are available. And we're in a service problem right at the present moment. We can put an economic development officer out there, go and recruit and say, yep, need a 20,000 square foot building, and Carl can issue the building permit for it next week. No, we can't, because we don't have any water, we don't have any sewer capacity for it. There's a lot of competing needs here. At my point, Newstead, yes, has in their business park 15 acres, give or take. Not 100% service, but service capacity is there. Durham in the business park, is there one lot left? And we're getting tight on capacity. So do you spend the money on an economic development officer to go out and recruit somebody and tell them, yep, we're ready for you? How long does it take to put services in, Jeff? 5 years, 10 years down the road, we'll have the property serviced? I think, cart here. We're buying a horse, but we've got no track to run on. So, getting back to some of our core, being able to supply that. I don't know whether an economic development officer or a planner is more what we need on how to get some service property for, if that's where we want to go. Is that the strategic movement into being a huge business park and being the business community? The idea of getting a battery plant or something like that, I think may be quite unrealistic. So, yeah, I've never been really in how much of an economic development, a recruiter do we need? What do we need to retain our people, our businesses? Understanding that maybe one in the South Industrial Park is really keen on expanding. We don't need an economic development officer to tell us, ooh, yeah, well, they've already told us they're looking for the land to expand and to continue to expand in West Grey. Economic development officer as a recruiter, maybe that's not what we need. We need somebody to understand what we need to retain the businesses we do have. And I think that's what Michelle said in her statement that she was willing to take on. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not sure that we're ready for an economic development officer. Tom, thank you.
Hey, Mayor Eccles. And with that, that'd be my segue into Making a motion that item number 3, Economic Development Officer be, well, not denied or I guess, not considered for the 2025 budget. Thank you. I'll move that.
Jeffrey, did you want to second that motion?
Not exactly. I'm probably going to lean the other way.
Okay. Does the mayor make a seconder? I can't second a motion from the chair.
Yeah, transfer them. Well, see how it picks up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, rather than squashing the whole idea at this point, I would like, I think, Mary, you mentioned about, recruiting and whatnot, but I think to me, economic development is much more than that. And since we have an expert in the room here, I would ask that maybe that Michelle bring back, her perspective on what an economic development officer could do for West Gray. And so that'll give us a little better idea. I know some other people are leaning towards we need one. I think we do need one. Whether it happens next year or not, I don't know, but I would like to hear more. And so can we ask that staff bring back a report, I guess, if you like, with the capabilities of what an economic development officer would do for us.
So I'm gonna, before Michelle, there was a motion that was moved. There is no seconder. So it's off the floor. All right. Your comments, Doug, are taken. Michelle.
Thank you through the chair to council. I will happily include that in the business. If council wants to potentially consider this, I will include all of that information in the business case.
Jamie?
So 3 Miracles, just procedurally, Councillor Hutchison, are you making a motion to that effect for direction to staff to bring forward a business case for an economic development officer for the 2025 draft budget?
Sorry. Yes, yes.
You were listening to him thinking down there. A seconder for that. Councillor Townsend. Any further questions or comments? Hmm?
Yep. Through you, Mayor Eccles, I would like to call a recorded vote on this one, please. Okay. I've had one of these for a long time. Right.
Get a better sheet. Good. Before you go there, am I on that sheet? And where?
First. If I may.
Go ahead. Recorded vote's been asked for.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. As noted, Deputy Mayor Hutchison has called for a recorded vote on this, so I will take the roll now. So, Councillor Forster.
In favor of holding this item on.
Mayor Eccles.
No. Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Opposed.
Councillor Noon.
In favor?
Councillor Hutchinson.
In favor?
Councillor Shay.
In favor.
Councillor Townsend.
In favor.
Motion carries with 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
Yep. So we'll see what it looks like. Okay, Number 4, culinary trail development. Counselor Hutchison must be onto this one. It's a trail. Sorry, Doug. It was way too easy.
I would like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Doug.
I like to make a motion that we remove this at this time due to potential economic development officer. And I just don't think we're at that point right now.
Joyce, and then I'll go to Jeff. Thank you.
If Counselor Hutchinson put that in a motion, I will second it.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Jeff?
I was going to say the same thing, but it's been said, so thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on the motion that's on the floor? Removes the culinary development. Trail development. And we'll call the question. All those in favor? You opposed? That's carried. Michelle, downtown Wi-Fi. How do you want to deal with this one?
Thank you through the chair. Councillor Forrester, did you feel strongly about that? This item was identified as well in the strategic plan. In speaking to our corporate initiatives officer, we talked about if this were a phased-in project, that we did our 2 larger settlement areas of Newstead and Durham, where there is larger also tourism activity, that we phase it in, and that we look at the other communities in subsequent years and beyond that. A lot of downtowns have downtown Wi-Fi, and as we build out Riverside Park, we thought it was important that council have an opportunity to discuss whether they want this brought forward.
Any thoughts? Councillor Townsend, Doug?
Just a question, and not really knowing how it would work. In essence, anybody living in the downtown area would be, for the most part, as a municipality, providing those residents with free Wi-Fi also?
Thank you. It would be available for everyone. It is not like the Wi-Fi. You would not be streaming Netflix off the downtown free Wi-Fi. We do have Wi-Fi now in our libraries and our arenas. And sometimes you notice people parked out in the parking lot to tap into the Wi-Fi. So it's a potential, but it's a different type of feed, and that's the extent of my technical knowledge.
You might be able to even sit outside this office and connect to the Wi-Fi to do business. Joyce?
I think it would be beneficial, but I look at this, is this a need or a want? With the next item coming up, I would propose at this time we not move forward with it.
Okay. Ms. Noon's making a motion of that. Seconded by Doug. Any further comments on this? Scott, sorry.
Yeah, I had a brief discussion about this item with somebody this weekend, and I don't believe it's going to bring any people to downtown that aren't already coming. And most of our downtowns do have an area where there is free Wi-Fi, such as the library or a park or a recreation facility.
Any further comments? Is there any exploratory work done with in some other municipalities? I know Um, there's almost a corporate sponsorship of this at some point in time. Only just the best way to say that, but is it definitely a 10,000 a year? Is that the capital? Is that just wages trying to get this, make it happen, or what?
Thank you. We would go into all that in-depth analysis if you wanted it brought forward as business case. That being said, there is some capital upfront that would be required, and then there would be the ongoing, just like we all pay our own Wi-Fi bill. There are communities where telecom providers have provided it. We haven't invested any resources or staff time into this at this point, but it is certainly, as we look at downtown revitalization, it can be certainly something that can be added to our overall downtown improvement list that we could consider. I have been advised, since we have a great team here who feeds me all kinds of great information related to people using it for their Netflix time and personal use. Most public connections max out at 30 to 60 minutes as well. So yes, we can continue to investigate it to see if there's other ways to provide that service.
I agree. I think we put it off at this time, but I think given that we have a new high-speed internet provider in town, that they might be interested in being a corporate citizen and provide this service for us. So I'd say we leave it for now, but maybe something to investigate in the future.
Keep looking for it here. Further comments? So we have motion on the floor then to remove this. Not make a business case for it. Not say anymore. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. No, we've been at this for an hour and a half now. Do you want to take a little break? There's a few that are squirming, so I take it that yes. Clerk is going, yeah. Oh. All right. We'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you, Ashley. Michelle, in your report, down to page 6. I believe it is now. Human Resources Joint Health and Safety Coordinator. Little explanation on this one. It looks like 70,000, but there's 40,000 returns. So there's, if you can find another 40, this job would make the municipality some revenue.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, we are now in items that are not part of the strategic plan, that are either being put forward by staff for consideration or have been mentioned over the course of the year. The municipality, I would argue, our staff are our most important asset, and we have a tremendous staff. The cost of workforce recruitment and retention is enormous. When you lose staff and try to recruit in this tough marketplace, it's difficult. My observation since I've been here the last 3 months is that the function of human resources has been handled off the side of desks for everybody, either through the CAO and or through the directors of the particular departments. It's not efficient. I don't think I'm concerned that we may be not being fully compliant with employment standards. We need to keep up on employment standards. And joint health and safety is a legislative component. It needs to be a priority in this municipality. And I highly recommend that council consider allowing us to explore the option for HR dedicated resources to support this municipality. In this recommendation, I have identified either through contracted services or through a staffing option. And I'd like to be able to come forward to recommend different options that we may consider. The potential $40,000 in premiums. The WSIB has a WSIB Excellence Program, and it's a standard to which businesses who sign up for the program, units and modules that they have to make sure their staff are undertaking, are being trained in, are being made aware of. But by doing modules per year, we could achieve a $10,000 rebate per completed module for this municipality. We believe if we have dedicated resources, we could easily complete 4 modules, which would make us eligible for a $40,000 rebate on WSIB premiums. Along with the financial incentive for that, we need to focus on the safety of our employees and making sure we have safe workplaces. So I think having dedicated resources to perform this function would make this municipality more efficient. I think it would save us in the long run in all of the costs related to workforce recruitment. And I do think it would provide for a better workforce with some premium savings on our WSIB.
Oh.
Mayor Eccles, and through you to Madam CAO, how many modules are there? 4, 1,200? If I may. There you go.
Not fully sure. I'd have to check on that. There is an obligation. We can't do 50 a year, even if there were 50, because once you do 4 in year 1, you have to maintain those modules and you have to keep adding new ones each year so that your workforce becomes better. So I would investigate all of that as part of the report back if council will approve us bringing this forward for additional consideration.
Okay, thank you. You know where I was going with that one pretty quick. But anyway, so for the first year, and it's an ongoing renewable for the following, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess my other question is, realistically, $70,000 is what HR, I find that number, I just find that light or low. It's in my own opinion, just what I'm seeing out there.
Thank you. Through the chair to council. It would be low for an annual. That's why we put 70,000 in here, because there is the potential for contracted services. There are firms that provide that service. I would suggest 70,000 if it were a staff person, might be in year one, and it probably wouldn't be a full annual. I would suggest that we would probably hire somebody April 1st, and we would come back with what an annualized staff cost after that. And that's why we'd like to be able to do the research on it.
And I support that. And I just, again, I gotta look beyond 2025, because that's just the way of the nature of the beast. So 2026, the real number would be quite a bit north of that. If it's consultant, that's fine, but if it's an employee, I already know in the back of my mind, it's gonna be north. So the impact in 25 is one thing. The impact of 2026 with two of them is where I'm at. So this one I can get behind. I see the benefit of this, but I won't go backwards on the other conversation, but this one I could support. Thank you.
Joyce, Councillor Nee.
Well, thank you. If I can reflect on previous years, our chief of the fire department was always kind of, that was his domain, was the health and safety component. We did have a committee, but now I know we no longer have that committee. But moving forward, and I know in public works, there's an entity there for training and so on and so forth. If those entities or those costs are still within all those departments, and we're hiring, if it moves forward, we're hiring that dedicated person for health and safety. If those costs are still affiliated with all those departments, could we not take some of those funds from those departments, offsetting those, and be affordable to include this then as a good potential for moving forward for that domain person for human resources and health and safety?
Thank you. So if I may, through the chair to council, firstly, we do still have a joint health and safety committee. We are obliged to have it. It's just not, the members are not approved anymore through bylaw. We removed the bylaw, but we still have the legal requirement to have a joint health and safety committee. We are working with that committee right now to actually reinvigorate it and grow the membership. So that is a top priority. I've confirmed with our treasurer, there are no budget allocations within departments. Departments, including our fire department, our public works, have a health and safety component that's handled within their department, but there are no budget dollars specifically allocated to that. And I would argue it's a little bit like some of the other functions. They are side of the desk. And I would argue that something as important as HR and joint health and safety, we need dedicated resources to ensure that we maintain our commitment to that.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I just thought maybe there was just some money we could kind of grab to help offset these costs. Thank you.
Anyone else? Doug.
Just a comment about you mentioned about contract services. So if we were to contract, then we probably wouldn't get that rebate from back on the contractor, right?
Thank you. Through the chair to council, I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. We may, it's still around completion of the training and the ensuring that our staff are well versed in these particular modules. The challenge with the benefit of a contractor is that you just pay them for what you do. The challenge with a contractor is they aren't dedicated 100% to you. You call them and you get a bill for when you do it. So there's a mix and match. I do believe there is a benefit to a dedicated staff resource, but I would like to be able to research that and bring it back for council.
So, yeah, like I think I prefer an in-house rather than contract. I think there's more benefit to that. The other question I had is, does this human resources person have anything to do with police? Police do their own human resources, hiring at joint health and safety? Or will it be involved with police too?
When you use your microphone, you can.
Someday I will figure this out. To answer your question, Councillor Hutchinson, we do our own. We are job specific for our health and safety component because we are sector specific, same as the fire. If we were to jump on board with yours, we could probably eat up all of the time that your person would want with health and safety. We do have a joint health and safety board. We do have a contractor who advises us on it. But as the CAO did say, it is off the side of both myself and the deputy chief's desk at the present time. We don't have a full-time option for it. But the site specific and the rules we have about not being able to refuse dangerous work, certain sectors, the presumptive legislation on PTSD, it is a busy time for us. We do a lot of human resources, and it's getting more and more as generational changes come along with different expectations for generations of officers. But it is all done in-house by myself, and I don't want to speak for Phil, but it's done in-house for the fire service as well. Nothing to say?
Nothing to say.
Anything else? Doug? Councillor Johnson.
Just gonna say, yeah, you are gonna look into the contracted services also. I know of another business that has, I would say, probably the same amount of employees that we do that uses a contracted HR service and seems to be working all right. So just and who knows, maybe reaching out to places like that and see what their experiences might help you also.
Okay. Anything further? So I need a motion going on this one. Joyce?
It's just another comment. What about a shared service again with another municipality? Was that a consideration?
At this point, it hasn't been, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be. So if you permit me to write a business case, I will take that under advisement.
Okay, Tom?
I would move that we consider this for the 2025 budget and a further report comes forward. But the clerk's probably got the wording now.
You got that?
Through your miracles, yes, I do. I can read it back for council if that's council's wish. So that in consideration of staff report 2025 additional items for budget consideration, council directs staff to include a business case for a human resources / joint health and safety coordinator in the 2025 draft budget.
That's it. Thanks, Tom. We have a seconder for that. Councillor Forrester. Okay. Any other questions, comments on this? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next one, eScribe encoder. Who wants to talk about this? Michelle, it's in your report. Or are you going to delegate this off to somebody?
Thank you. The powers of a CAO allow you to delegate. So I would happily delegate this off to our clerk.
Excellent. This is something that you're involved in, is it, Jamie?
Yes, and thank you for that, Michelle. It's much appreciated. Through your miracles to council, many West Grey residents view council meetings electronically. Currently, West Grey council meetings are live streamed through and then later posted to YouTube, meaning that residents are required to access a third-party site that can be difficult to navigate and is not integrated with the council meeting agenda. The eScribe encoder would allow us to integrate the live stream of the meeting directly in the council calendar, meaning that those interested in viewing the meeting will only have to visit one location and access all content. Additionally, by obtaining an eScribe encoder, agenda items will automatically be tagged to their corresponding time within the video, which would mean that residents and members of the public wouldn't have to scrub through hours of footage to get to the specific agenda item that they wanted. So for example, if this morning they only wanted to watch the piece about an economic development officer, had we had a standalone report on that, they could click that item and it would fast forward to that section in the meeting. They could watch that, take in what they need to, and then go about their business. So an e-scribe encoder would allow us to do that. In addition, by securing a video encoder, West Gray would retain control of council meeting videos and the rights to the intellectual property of the council meeting recording. Currently, meeting videos are posted to YouTube, which means that we sacrifice all control of the intellectual property to YouTube and all ownership rights of that video. So the e-scribe encoder would allow us to retain those rights, tag the video, and provide for a one-stop shop for council meeting minutes, agendas, and video in one location.
Questions or comments? Tom?
Thank you. It looked that way going in. You got me there. Thank you, Mayor Eccles. This one here I could support because I think it goes well with the communication factor. I think the convenience to our community to not have to be going through several different layers of methods to get to what the message and they're looking for. So this one I can support again, it's just simply under communications, which is part of our strat plan. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Comment? Doug?
Yeah,
Councillor Hutch.
if Deputy Mayor made a motion, I'll second that, but I'm not sure if he did.
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay.
I'm gonna take that as, I'm gonna take you as seconding it.
Okay. So my thoughts are, this is one that obviously there's benefits for it. And just like some of these other ones that are like 10,000, 5,000, whatever, I like to see us do as many of these as we can. They're little things, but they're things that need to be done and they're not a big budget item. If it means maybe one less conference for a council or means one less gravel, load of gravel, maybe we make it work. I'd like to see us go forward with some of these smaller ticket items here, but yeah.
This one is one of them. Okay. So we've got the motion to leave the e-scribe encoder system in. I think when we had the kiosk one up there, but this is considerably less. Is that, just for clarity, Jamie, the 10,000, that's an annual fee?
Through you, that is correct, yes.
Okay. And if I remember right, a little while ago, there was a setup fee or something to get this up and going. Like this is what it is all in?
Yes, through your miracles. When I brought this forward for consideration in last year's budget, there was a $2,700 one-time setup fee. eScribe has waived that fee should we choose to move forward with this at this time.
Okay. And I guess it would fit in. The eScribe, kind of neat. I've already got it on my computer and I believe the deputy mayor has it on his. It's what the county uses at this present moment as well too. For putting everything out on eScribe, it's more accessible, I guess, is maybe the best way to put it. And in that, more secure as well too. We can send out our county closed session packages and whatnot are here ahead of time, but it's a secure way, which right at the present moment, Jamie doesn't have that access to with the way we put out our agendas at the present moment and the packages. Okay, moved and seconded. Do I hear? Sorry, Jeff, I just saw you. Were you scratching your head or did you look for a question?
I was scratching my head, but I will ask a question.
Thank you.
So I'm in favor of this. When you talk about the YouTube problems with YouTube, the only thing is I would be concerned that maybe a lot of people like to find us on YouTube. And so perhaps when we implement this, we would leave the YouTube option up for a year just to see how many people continue to use it. But that's getting into the weeds. So I didn't really want to raise that at this time. Thank you.
Yep. Good point on how we're going to implement it and make it accessible to the community. Residents. Doug, Councillor Hutchison.
Some of these smaller ticketed items, we don't need a report back on this. Like if we make a motion to accept this, we just move forward, right? It doesn't need to come back to us in terms of more information, does it, in this case?
And looking what staff feels comfortable with. Yeah, writing reports seems to be a big thing that they really like doing, so I can imagine them. Jamie?
Yeah, thank you. I just spoke to the treasurer. If it's council's wish to move some of these items forward, I think the explanations are fairly self-explanatory. I suspect we can just motion it to be included in the budget.
The Three Miracles, and to further the point made by Michelle, that is correct. And for this particular example, I would say I probably just provided you with the business case in its entirety. So there's not much more that I could report on that. So if that's your wish, then yes, certainly for anything moving forward, if council doesn't want that report back on it and just wants it included in the draft budget, then a motion to that effect would be in order.
Depending on what information you get between now and when the draft budget comes, it doesn't mean that it's written in stone that this is going to be. Till the bylaw is passed, yes, nothing is for certain. Okay, so we got a motion to leave this in. I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Community flagpole. Who wants to, anybody want to speak about this? Or is this one of Jeff's? We got a bit of a cedar pole that we can cut, and is that what we're putting up? Very organic, natural? No? Michelle?
Thank you. I don't think I need to elaborate much on this. I think the explanation in the report is pretty self-explanatory, and council is aware of the requests we've had over the course of the year.
Tom?
Mayor Eccles. So through you to Madam CEO, so is this our response to our pending flag flying policy, if you will?
Thank you. I think this is the logistical piece of when council currently has requests to fly a community flag. The policy is a whole different kettle of fish because there may be nuance there that I would never suppose I should speak to without deferring to our clerk on that matter, because that's his world.
I shouldn't have used the word policy. I know we have a pending discussion around that. So yes, it's a minuscule amount, but we don't have that report. I think I'd like to see that and a decision on what would be our position, or call it policy, if you will, from council for the flag, raising various flags throughout the ceremonial or throughout the year. So that to me would work hand in hand with this. And I see the clerk wants to talk to.
Three Miracles to council. It's kind of part and parcel with the flagpole and the policy. Without a standalone flagpole, there's really no point in enacting a policy on how we would govern requests that come forward. At the present time, we remove our municipal flag and we do erect a flag that council provides direction on. I would say that removing the municipal flag in favor of a community flag is not something that I would recommend. Having that standalone flagpole really provides that avenue for those community requests to come forward. And I think too, it's important not to diminish or make light of our municipal flag as well. So having a flagpole standalone for community flags is hand in hand with that policy. So if council provides direction on a flagpole and installing one in the future, then you would see come forward a community flagpole and proclamation policy and something like that.
Just to follow up, and thank you, Clerk Ackensweller. So I guess I'm still in my mind though, we don't know the position of council if we want to even support various ceremonial flags throughout the year. So I guess we haven't had that discussion to see how this council feels about supporting various flags or whatever the scenario would, whatever handle you want to put on throughout the year. So that's where I'm having a hard time, is that discussion hasn't been here. And now we're looking at putting a flag up. So that's predetermining the decision of council that we are endorsing an ongoing flag raising. Thank you.
Three Miracles. So I think probably what would be a good example is looking at the flags that we do put up on a regular basis, on an annual basis now. So we fly the Legion flag annually for Legion Week. We have flown the Pride flag during Pride Month. We fly the Every Child Matters flag, and I know there are more. So those flags at the present moment are flown outside of a flag flying policy. And for some of those flags, we do have a standing order from council to fly them every year. So providing that community flagpole or just additional flagpole would allow us to not have to remove the West Grey flag in order to accommodate those requests. And as I said, if council is supportive of the flagpole, then a more fulsome flag flying policy would come forward for consideration. And there is also no requirement that the pole have a flag on it at all times as well. So there are situations where community flagpoles in other municipalities you'll see don't have flags on them outside of the requests that have been received.
And last comment, thank you. Thank you very much for the explanation. And I do want to say this, that I don't think in any circumstances, regardless of what the ceremony is, that the West Grey flag or the Canadian flag should ever come down and something supersedes that and flies above that. That's just my thought on that. I think those flags should be there, and if we can't support the others or they got to fly under it, it'd be the only support I would have. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Townsend. Doug?
Thank you. Yeah, my only concern with this, it's kind of almost a cart for the horse type of thing. If we don't have our policy and know what we're doing, because I know once we have a pole up, I know there's been flag flaps in a lot of other municipalities over issues and groups and stuff. And if we have that designated pole, then what's our policy going to look like? Because we may have a lot of other groups or whatever you want to call them coming forward that want to fly their flag on our poles. So until we have that policy in place, it's just not kind of a cart before the horse, because we may choose not to fly any flags. And then we've spent $10,000 on an empty pole. So just a thought.
I'm gonna add in strategically, our strategy certainly has been that we have flown flags. I know it's certainly been a concern of council as well as staff on having to take the municipal flag down on that array. I think this is coming forward as a proactive. This council has, and past councils certainly have, flown flags, and with some controversy. But having a flag pole, I would say it probably won't go up until sometime next spring. So we will see the policy before then. And if at that point in time, we don't have it in the budget and the policy is, yes, we need a flagpole and we can have it. If the policy comes back and council refuses that and says, no, we're not going to fly flags sometime in February or March, I'm committing to having that policy done by that time, Jamie. Then we don't need to go forward with, and it wouldn't be there. But yeah, if you put the cart in the horse, you've got to buy one before you have the, there's no correct time, but if we don't have this in here, I think it's the correct thing. I'm looking at that at 10,000. I do know what the Lions Club spent on the one at the Lions Park, the bridge, and a couple of other ones that I've been involved with of resourcing and putting up. And I believe the $10,000 is maybe on the top end, but I'll leave it at that. So we can do a little bit, but there is a motion to leave this in, I believe, at this point in time. Do we have that or not? Do we have a motion? Which way? Joyce?
Again, I think it's one of these needs versus wants, and I don't think at this time, until policy's put in place, that we not move forward with it. I'm just thinking with the cost wise, is that something that administratively we could incorporate into? Maybe there's some seed money there at some point if the policy is moved, maybe at that time we can look at where money would be available within the budget. Thank you.
So is that a motion? Okay. We have a seconder for that. Tom? Sure. Deputy Mayor. Okay. Any further questions, comments on the motion to remove the $10,000 flagpole? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Community garden expansion. Not very much. Michelle, or any comments on this?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to declare a conflict of interest because I am a subscriber to the community garden service. So I'll step away for this part of the discussion. I'll send you the paperwork, Jamie.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Duly noted. Thank you, Jeffrey. Michelle.
Thank you. As you know, the new community gardens this year were incredibly well received, and we have a wait list of over 20 people looking for beds. The recommendation is that we put together a program where we plan to continue to grow those beds as long as the community need demands. In speaking with our corporate initiatives officer, he's estimating we could get 3 to 4 additional beds per year for $2,500 annually.
Okay. Comments? Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. I guess one of the concerns I have here is that we've really focused on Durham and we have not reached out to the needs in Elmwood or Newstead and Ayton in particular, but because there is discussion over there, there's a need for it, but we seem to be putting all our eggs over in one basket, if you will, and we haven't even considered an expansion over there or to take it to the community to see what kind of need would be there or the desire to support such a thing. So I'd rather we focus a little bit on that. I know there's some community or members in the community that are in a position to donate some trees to get it going, some fruit trees. So I'd like to see a little more focus on West Grey as a whole, as opposed to zeroing in on, again, just the Durham site. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Joyce?
I too feel that the expansion, maybe they could reach out to businesses and other areas, maybe where they could get donations to help enhance their current garden. But I would rather see more money put towards maybe community enhancements with just with hanging planters or urns or just other areas where it would be distributed amongst all the West Grey in the urban centers. Thank you.
Anyone else? Looking for some direction. Leave it in, take it out. Tom?
Well, if we make a motion to remove it, there's still going to be some kind of a cost to establish the needs throughout the rest of the community. And so I don't know, through you to Madam CEO, if there must be a cost affiliated with doing that research, if I may, before I make a motion.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, this item and this discussion is actually very interesting. we know that recreation programming needs across the entire municipality, we believe need to be looked at holistically. At this point, the municipality does not have a recreation master plan. I know there was discussions last year about a trails master plan. In speaking with staff, it is our intention to internally develop a recreation master plan for council consideration. We think we can do that with internal resources based on some of the knowledge we have. And that would involve community consultation and engagement to look at what some of the community needs and requests are. And if council is concerned about this more broadly, I would suggest that community gardens could be identified as part of that rec master plan work that we will be doing in 2025.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so I'll go this way around that statement. So what I could do is I could support this and use the recommendation to request a staff report come back around this line item, but include what it would look like for Aden, Elmwood, and Newstead as sites is a different way to look at it, I guess, because there's budget, there's cost to do that. I know that. So if I support this, if we got this motion, if it's supported by council, but then we take that $2,500 line item, if it's not necessarily for the Durham site, but it goes to, we can look at the cost of putting beds in elsewhere. I guess it's kind of my roundabout way of getting something that I need.
Okay. So I think, Tom, what you were moving there was to leave this in, but staff report come back identifying the community garden expansion program. Jamie.
Through Miracles, council directs staff to bring forward a business case for the expansion of community gardens throughout West Gray. Is that it enough of what you're looking for, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, just as long as it's throughout, but it's not site specific, I think is really the key component here, because I think this, by supporting it, Clerk, I'm assuming well, I hate the word assume, but I'm going to say, I assume that's all that's doing is generating a report to come back so we can have a more in detail look into the potential of expansion.
It's through Miracles. Yes, that's correct. So this wouldn't commit anything in the draft 2025 budget. It's just that further consideration. So at the next meeting, council can make a decision as to whether or not they wanted to keep that in the budget.
Thank you, Clerk. And that's exactly the direction I was trying to do. And I was certainly moved that. Thank you.
As part of when we're looking into this stuff, from a staff perspective, do we look at the possibility of sponsorship? I mean, it's not a big line item. They're not that expensive. If we can do 3 or 4 for $2,500 to get businesses or individuals, similar to what they did with the Lions did with the dog park and the signs on them. If some company or family wanted to sponsor one, to go with sponsorship so that everything doesn't fall at the feet of municipality to fund everything. So if down in Aden, if they want to put in 3 or 4 beds, maybe we can, maybe there's some sponsorship to be had around there. Like everything doesn't need to fall at the feet of the municipality. There is probably some sponsorship dollars out there. Just a thought.
Michelle?
Thank you. Through the chair to council, staff our community development staff are really good at looking at sponsorships. I will caution though that, right now we're doing it in a piecemeal way. We go to somebody for ice sponsorship and we go for the Halloween event. I think some of this as part of the conversations evolve. is how we work with community groups as well. So is there, when we're looking at wants versus needs, is there a level of service or establishment of certain programs that the municipality wants to commit to? For instance, and I'll use the existing community gardens. This was our commitment in Durham to do this. Any expansion moving forward would be led by the community perhaps, and maybe that's a way to do it, but it's certainly always considered. Just have to be careful about always, it's an easy thing to say, let's go to businesses and do it. And if you're a business owner sitting here listening to this, you're probably going, no, stop bugging me about sponsorships for this, that, and the other. So we're trying to be a little more respectful and strategic about it. But I think the community / municipal, that public-private thing is a very good sort of beacon to which to work to.
Okay. Anything else? Scott?
Yeah, I believe this item might be a good one to reach out to our service clubs. Because like maybe the Agriculture Society would like to sponsor it, and then they would get more entries in their fair.
Yep. Okay. How big would we need to make the garden for somebody that's growing a pumpkin for Pumpkin Fest in Port Elgin? Anything else? Yeah. Want to read that motion back? It's what we've got on there, Jamie?
Certainly through your miracles that in consideration of staff report 2025 additional items for budget consideration, council directs staff to bring forward a business case for the expansion of community gardens throughout West Gray.
Good. Any further questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. Do we send a text or are you coming back in? Mr. Shea? Jeff? There you are. Thank you. Ooh. Well, this next one's not your $2,500 one. Comprehensive official plan. A new comprehensive. Who wants to take this one? CEO is delegating that down and it looked like the finger pointed at you, Carl. Matter of fact, all four fingers pointed at you. She gives you the hand. Carl.
Yes, thank you through you, Chair. Yeah, so we, as council is aware, we've been working on our trying to get our official plan updated. As council has also been aware, the Ontario government has been sending out planning amendments and have also provided a brand new provincial policy statement that came into effect, I believe, October 20th. So there's been a large number of changes, all required to be incorporated into our new official plan. And unfortunately, at this point, well, no, I should say fortunately at this point, there's been a lot of development going in West Gray, and our planning staff just have not had time to update our official plan and move forward with this project. So if council wishes to move forward with the official plan in 2025, staff is recommending that this be outsourced to a consultant. That with the foreseeable future, with the development proposed in West Gray and the amount of work planning staff is currently doing, there's just no capacity in the day-to-day operations of the current staff to get this project completed.
Okay. Anything else? Carries.
We are anticipating, we're going through updating our current development charges study in our previous one, and I would anticipate it carrying forward. There is a portion that is eligible growth related for official plan and zoning bylaw updates. So between the funding from the development charges, and we had been putting money aside into reserve for several years as well, we should be able to fund I think most of the cost of this one, but it is a significant project that council should be aware of. So we are bringing it forward, but we should be able to have funding combined with the reserve that we currently have and development charges reserves.
Okay. Doug? Counselor Hutchison?
Official plan, it has a time frame in terms of renewal, right? Is it every 5 years that we have to do our official plan? Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know the exact wording in it, and I think it's more along the recommended to upgrade or if I'm not sure if our planner David is online, he may be able to speak specifically to it, but there is a recommendation in there, I believe that, yeah, that we review our official plan every 5 years and to confirm that it is in line with provincial policy and the Grey County official plan.
Well, can you tell me when we last did our official plan? Seems to me it wasn't that long ago. And given that this is the ministry's made changes to their plan, I presume that, you know, they're going to give us like a few years down the road to get this done rather than wanting it done yesterday. I want a government.
Through you, Chair. So it looks like our last, our official plan was, the last bylaw was from 2012. So it's been 12 years by my math.
So the last one that was done in the last term of council was the comprehensive zoning bylaw?
We brought forward a draft of our proposed upgrade or update to our our official plan, but it was never approved by council. And it now has to be amended to meet the 2024 official plan, our provincial policy statement.
Counselor Shay, jump in.
I was curious that the official plan, the draft official plan was never approved, in part because there was substantial citizen input. I think it was brought to public meetings and put out for public comment. Will those comments be incorporated into this new plan, or was that whole exercise just sort of flushed down the toilet?
Carl?
Thank you through you, Chair. So our proposal would be that we would be basically starting over at this point. The new consultant would be reviewing our current official plan, comparing it to the provincial policy statement, determining what is required to be updated, and then they would do a council and community involvement for commenting, and then they would bring a draft version back for council and staff review.
So this new official plan will be for all of West Grey, because my understanding at the present moment, it's only the two urban areas, Durham and Newstead, that have an official plan. The three former townships fall under the county official plan.
That's correct. The new official plan would only be for Durham and Newstead.
So it's correct, it's redoing the two official plans that are for the urban areas, not the rural areas. The rurals would still stay under the county official plan.
Yes, that's correct.
Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and through you to CBO Shipwreck. So just an estimate, how long will this take? Are we going to find ourselves in the same pattern that we did last time where we ended up running out of the term, and here we are again spending more money to redo what I thought we were well in control of last term? So it's just, you don't have to nail an exact deadline, but will this get done this term?
That would be the intent, that it would be done, that it would take less than 1 calendar year to complete, from start to finish. Depending on when the budget was approved, we would go up for a tender and then that, or an RFP, and, they would provide a timeline that would be included for council to review prior to approval.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, based on that and that, estimate commitment that we could get it done again before the end of the term, which is great. And also supporting the statement made by, our treasurer, Ms. Mighton, that thinks that there's an ability to cover a good chunk of it, hopefully all of it. I would certainly, no. Let me just, so I'm clear on that.
Sorry, I should have let you fit. Not all of it would be development charges, but there would be, we have enough reserves also set aside.
So that's what, yes, so to cover the majority of it, whether it's through reserves or through future DCs. I'll go with that one there, Ms. Whiten. So I would move that we would support this one. Thank you.
Counts. I'll take a seconder. Is there a seconder first? Okay, and then Jamie, and then I'll get you the.
City Miracles, just for clarity, is that direction for inclusion in the draft 2025 budget or for a business case to be presented at the next meeting?
So that one there is the one I'm saying to approve. Include in the draft.
Okay. Councillor Townsend. Doug?
So going back to what Councillor Shea had said, are they going to, to me, it makes more sense to build off of what we already have, even though it's not approved, to build off that because people have provided input and everything. Or are they going to go back and take the last one that was complete, which was 2012, and start from scratch? Like, are we reinventing the wheel or are we carrying on with what we currently have?
I guess at this point that hasn't been determined. We would have to consult with whoever is hired. They would take into consideration some of the information that is in the current official plan for sure and propose it in the updated version, as long as it's not in conflict with any new provincial policies. Yeah.
Okay. Joyce.
Thank you. So, yeah, I agree with what Councillor Townsend has said. Like, if it's already done, and the money's already been spent on it being most current, other than adding the revisions that the province has included, that maybe the cost could be lessened. Would the RFPs be part of that $80,000 as well, or is that going to be over and above?
That 80,000 is our estimate on the total cost to have the new official plan completed.
Correct. I'll ask this question later. Because it's not germane to the motion that's on the floor right at the present moment. Doug?
So we're saying that if we approve this, we're saying it's $80,000 cost, but that some of that cost is offset by development charges and reserves or whatever. So it won't actually be a $80,000 hit to our budget.
No, right.
Okay, thank you.
And when we see the budget, there'll be a revenue line in there on what staff is suggesting comes out of reserves. Good. Any other questions? Ask the question, call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Stormwater Master Plan. Do you want to tap the finger on that one too, Michelle? Yep, further down the table. Yep. Jeff.
Yeah, this
Rick
one
Reagan.
is a have to, as was noted in a previous staff report. we did receive a consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approval, previously known as the certificate of approval for both our wastewater collection system and our stormwater management system. In terms of the stormwater, there is a requirement for a stormwater master plan. There is no actual deadline for the report given in the license itself. The license itself typically runs a 3-year cycle. So what I'm proposing is a plan to work on the master plan or the life of the initial license until the MOA tells me otherwise. So it would be kind of a 3-year approach to achieve a master plan that actually has conclusions and recommendations and things we could actually action.
Joyce, please.
So this master plan, is it strictly for Durham and Newstead, or stormwater, would that be encompass all urban centers?
Jeff?
Right now, the license itself applies to Durham and Newstead. If a rural subdivision came online and it too had a storm sewer collection, treatment, disposal component to it, the license would be expanded to include that. But right now, as of today, it is Durham and Newstead.
Go ahead, Joyce.
So the costing, then the sewer portion, then would it be picked up by the users on the system? I realize the storm sewer would be all tax levy, like all residents, because it's stormwater, rainwater. So it's off our streets and stuff, but it's also off houses, like their eave troughs and stuff. But I was just wondering how that money's collected on the levy.
That's an option. Right, it's not like your water rate or structure, which has a function for sanitary. So as right now, no, it's not set up like that, but that is a potential option in the future.
Ken? I'm just kind of at a loss of what a master plan is. So we had no plan putting this into place, or is it trying to collect the information that we have on what pipe we have in the ground?
So we have a reasonably decent idea of the kilometers of pipes in the ground and how many manholes, et cetera. It's more about what is the actual rainfall and how much is being discharged, and when is the peak discharge? When does it start? When does it peak? When does it end? It's that type of analysis.
Councillor Shea.
Will this go anywhere in terms of helping address regular flooding problems such as on Sadler Street?
Sadler Street itself has a combination of two issues that we're aware of. One is the storm sewer itself, which is a separate engineering exercise to correct the size of the pipes. The second part of it is the creek itself, which is an exercise with SVCA. Certainly, this would be a discussion point within it, but its main purpose would not in and by itself address the Sadler Street issue, but that would be an example of different considerations.
Scott.
All right, so does this report include storm sewers on county or provincial highways as well?
No, this is simply West Gray owned and operated infrastructure.
But on the connecting link through Durham as an example, that is ours.
That would be an example of where it ultimately ties into our outfall, so we'd have to take a look at that too. And there would be probably a similar story in some of the new stat stuff too, where any of the infrastructure, county or provincial owned, eventually ties into our network, it'll have to be considered.
So quite frankly, this is just putting down something on the paper that we already know to offset something that the province, some bureaucrat in Toronto thinks that they should know. We're doing a stormwater master plan. Stormwater's been in both of these municipalities for how long? We've got everything there. And now they want it to be a master plan. I just get frustrated on the requirements from our ministry. This is how the water that's falling out of the sky, or maybe, I mean, outside of some of our creeks and rivers, is getting through our urban areas and not into somebody's basement. And we've got to put together a master plan, $30,000 a year for 3 years. So by the time we're done, it's $120,000 with inflation and everything, to tell them that the water runs downhill and it runs into the creek and it runs away. And we're controlling that. We've got no control over what's falling out of the air. It just frustrates me that how much has been downloaded to the municipalities. So if it's off the provincial highway and it's coming down the Durham Hill down Highway 6, how much is MTO putting into this? Because it's coming off of their highway. Absolutely nothing. We know it's running into the river anyways. Give us a little bit more respect that we'll look after the water and not having to do a plan to be approved by somebody somewhere that probably doesn't know where Garifraxa Street is or where Queen Street is in Newstead. Thank you for allowing me to soapbox at this point in time and not being able to put this money into putting better surfaces on our roads or anything else, but putting a bunch of something onto a server because it'll have to be submitted electronically. We'll be sitting on a server someplace at Queen's Park. Oh. Joyce, take the microphone away from me before I get myself in trouble.
Thank you. Is there any funding available for these things if it's being mandated by linear infrastructure, environmental compliance? Like, have you reached out to see if there's anything that's available to help you out?
No, there is no funding at the moment. And Mayor Eccles has written our Roma Good Roads and Emo delegation about our concerns about the way this is being implemented. We share in that frustration.
Councillor Hutchison.
So it says it's required. So what's the alternate that if we don't go ahead with it, what happens?
So right now, MOE inspectors are focusing heavily on water, sanitary, and landfill. It is a reasonable expectation, and it has occurred in one of our neighboring municipalities. The MOE is beginning to inspect storm sewer systems relative to the license and the permit. The plan I have in front of you, it's not to finish it in 1 year because there is no deadline to have it done in 1 year. I just want to be able to say, if they were to show up, yes, we're the requirement. Very much like the annual report you received this year. It was the first time we ever had to do an annual report on stormwater management. I just want to be able to say, yes, we're aware, council's aware, and we're working towards your goal or the expectations of the license and the permit.
Councillor Townsend.
So just as a follow-up to Councillor Hutchinson here then, so at some point down the road, we're going to have to upgrade or do something with our wastewater and sanitation system, especially here in Durham, to get more capacity if that's the route we choose. So by not having this report, is this going to be one of those reports where, you know, if we go to them and say we need to upgrade our system, and they're going to say, well, we need to see this report. Is this one of those reports?
That is a potential consequence. I'm more concerned about an inspector showing up and us not having done anything. And when we go to renew the license, if we don't have something to submit, we may have a problem then too.
We go with Tom first, Joyce, and then you.
Big miracles. So why is it 3 years and not 5? Because I don't see any, is there a deadline on this that we got to do this?
License and permit renewals typically run in 3-year cycles. We just received the permit at the end of 2023.
So we're in a position of financial restrictions with a budget, but we couldn't implement start of this to 26. Who's giving us that kind of guidance or saying, no, it's got to be started right away? It's just, so I'm clearing my mind with, they're putting some, you know, got to get on it, but I don't see any dates or anything. But I'm not asking for a report either, Director. I'm trying to figure out, they're telling us to do something, but how soon does it have to be completed? And I know it's a 3-year cycle, but it's our 3-year cycle. Maybe it works for us in 26 as our start.
You could potentially do it in 2026 if you want to do the whole thing then, but as Mayor Eccles already pointed out, my 90,000 with inflation is going to grow. I was trying to present a way that I thought, even though we don't want the $30,000 hit, it would be a financially viable alternative as opposed to coming back and saying the equivalent of a 1-ton pickup truck now needs to be spent on storm sewer. I was trying to offer an approach. We may not like it, that would be somewhat palatable.
And that, yeah, it's not what I was suggesting there, Director, is we start a 3-year thing at 30 grand for 3-year phase. We started 20. That's all I was saying is they're telling us we got to do this now. And I don't believe, I think I've heard there's not, it's just suggested we get going on it.
No, you do not have to start it today. As long as I have something when we go to renew the license in a couple of years' time, that is acceptable.
Okay, so a couple of years' time. So we started hypothetically, if we started 26, at least we started, or even 27, we started the process. This is what I'm trying to get to.
I don't think I can make 2027 work, but if we had to do it all in 2026, we could probably make that work.
Joyce?
Oh, then I have a little concern about the cost per year, 30,000 a year. Is a consultant also going to be looking after something like this? Like, can staff mandate it? Like, I'm just, we just looked at the new comprehensive official plan policy, and it's been recommended we get a consultant for that. What are we going to use to get this master plan put in place? Staff time or outside resources?
It'll be outside resources. It'll be the consultant that assisted us in putting the application for the license and permit together. Staff are tapped out to take this on in addition to current workloads. Either something else isn't getting done, or if everything is getting done, it's not getting done well. I think this is the best way to end up with a decent master plan, because the focus would be to try to generate something that isn't pie in the sky. If we tried to do it all in one year, it would be hard to control what the conclusions and recommendations look like. I think if we do it over several years in bite-sized pieces, we can really focus on the data and really generate something that we can action as opposed to coming back with multi-million-dollar concerns.
Go ahead, Joyce.
It's frustrating when we hear that staff's tapped out, and just seeing how we've grown in staff over the years. It's unfortunate that we don't have more expertise within internally that can help with these sorts of situations, that we have to always still rely on outside sources. It's frustrating. I know it's frustrating for you, but it's just, where's the end? Like it's more of a comment that it's frustrating. Thank you.
Michelle?
Thank you. If I may respond to that. Some of these consultants that we require have very specified skill sets, technical expertise. I would also argue we did an organizational review in 2020. We have not staffed up since that time. We were way behind the 8 ball comparatively to other municipalities. We do not have any redundancy in our staff. In the 3 months that I've been here, we have people who do jobs. We had a big discussion on this the other day. When somebody goes away on holidays, unless it's front counter staff, nobody does your work when you're away. You do 50% extra work to go on a week's vacation, so I think it's really important to put that on the record. Our staff work hard. Some of this stuff is very technically specific, and we are low on the staffing range.
Joyce?
I totally understand, been there, done that, but it's concern that when the province keeps downloading stuff like this to the municipalities, the frustration that you as a CAO and your supporting staff have to deal with. But it's just when we have to answer to our constituents when it comes to budgets. And I've heard it from other people, like, how many more staff are you getting in there? You know, like they don't seem to understand the needs that we encounter now. And I guess that's another communication component that is needed so that people understand, you know, it's not us, it's the province downloading, and it's how we have to get that work done at the end.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And to that point, Councillor Noon, we are actually having conversations internally, starting to document some of these additional pressures that are downloaded to the municipality. Not that that helps us, not that the province can go, oh, sorry, we'll give you some money for that, because we know they're not. But I think collectively, when we have council members delegating at Roma or AMO or FCM, somebody, a wise person I used to once work with, said to me, if you don't have data, it doesn't exist. So we're trying to capture that kind of data, and these are good stories to tell. But, you know, and my response to, you know, when you're dealing with constituent base, our staff base has not grown by anybody. So that's the answer. We have extra requirements, and we do not have additional staff complement to cover that. And we can blame the province. They blame us all the time for things, so we will blame them back.
Mr. Shea? Jeff?
I was going to make a point like Michelle's that when constituents speak to us about staffing complements, I think it's incumbent on us to reply to those comments and to explain that we are not a bloated, ever expanding empire. We're a very lean, efficient organization that is probably running understaffed. And I'm sort of, you know, making that argument all the time in the public. But I'm thinking that we have this burden upon us, and that staff has put forward a reasonable approach to sort of taking care of this responsibility, and that we include the proposed stormwater master plan strategy as outlined in this report. We include this in the budget.
You're moving that, Jeff? I got Jamie's writing that up.
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Shea that stormwater master plan be included. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hutchison. Thank you, Doug. I'll ask a comment from the chair, or question from the chair. What if we were to run it without a license?
Potentially you are subject to investigation and enforcement through the MOE. That's always their upper hand. This is relatively new. I'm not aware of anybody running into that yet, but that to me is the clear risk and consequence.
So I guess my question then is, for every development and every road we build, we've got the stormwater, we've got to address stormwater with the Conservation Authority. We've got a permit from them. But superseding that, you're telling me that now the Ministry of Environment is saying, oh, well, we need a license and a permit from them as well, too. So somebody would say that's probably double dipping just slightly. But what's the next thing is going forward. We put a stormwater management, and stormwater pipes have been in for 100 years.
So the answer to that is actually somewhat complex. Within the license itself, it lays out guidelines of what a developer is allowed to do, and they simply fill out 2 or 3 forms that come back to the municipality for our records, which are to be included in the annual report. And when you do a license renewal, the whole vision of what West Grey Stormwater Management Plan is expanded to include those forms. In that, there are some exceptions to that. If there's a certain level of complexity, i.e. if it turned into stormwater pumping, you would actually have to go back to the director for approval. But there are quite a few pre-approved projects that can be added on to the stormwater system without jumping through the previous hoops that a developer would have gone through to get an ECA. So the original idea was the ministry was claiming they were receiving complaints that projects were being held up at the province to give approval for relatively straightforward developments. So the intent was on some of the simpler projects to streamline it, which ultimately led to this whole licensing process. So there was intended to be some improvement for the developer. It just comes at the municipality taking on some of the work that I feel the province used to do.
So considerably more red tape, because obviously it has to be approved as well by Conservation Authority. So we've got 2 layers here. Who's taking the upper hand?
If it meets the criteria where it's pre-approved, once they have the SVCA permit, their engineer, the developer's engineer, fills out the required forms for West Grey, and then West Grey is the approval agency. If it doesn't meet the pre-approved criteria, then it goes back to the director of the MOE for approval.
So there's very little respect for your expertise or for the municipality as a governing body in the development of this. SVCA's got to get their fingers into it. Ministry of Environment has to have their fingers into it, but take no responsibility at the end of the day. Because if there is a flood, oh, well, that's the municipality. As you can tell, I'm slightly frustrated by this stuff. And continuous, I think it's been heard here, of the downloading and trying to justify our mature decisions to the province. Whether it be on what size of fire hose we have or how many police officers, we don't get a decision. Oh, no. Somebody's got to tell us what we need without ever knowing where we are. Somebody ask a question before I say something that I won't regret. I prefer a Mars bar. Thank you, Phil, for getting me back. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? Scott?
All right, with their motion, are we voting to keep this in? Or are we just voting to
I'll let Jamie
talk to it later?
Let Jamie read the motion here, so we're all clear, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Miracles, and through you, based on the comments made and the wording proposed by Councillor Shea, I took that as to incorporate that into the 2025 draft budget. So I have that in consideration of the report. Council direct staff to include $30,000 for stormwater master plan in the 2025 draft budget.
Okay, and that was moved and seconded by Councillor Shea and Councillor Hutchison. Last question, Joyce?
That motion, you have the 30,000 in, maybe for 2025, maybe we could reduce that number in another motion, or I guess we look at it with the business plan coming forward, how we look at that. Thank you.
Jamie?
So through Miracles, my understanding is that the direction that was being sought or being provided through this motion was not for a business plan, but for $30,000 to be included in the draft budget. So outside of a member putting forward a motion to amend this motion, there would be no other consideration on this.
Will there be further discussion in November when we see what it looks like in the budget? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. Now we get down to something that we can comment on. Michelle, first one is a part-time library assistant.
Thank you. And if I may, there was a sentence there that did not get carried over to this report, along with increasing the Ayton branch, not houses, but hours, typo in the report, by 1 hour on Saturdays. They also want to hire a part-time library assistant for programming. The rationale will increase the ability of the library to design, prepare, and deliver programs to the community at no cost.
On this, Doug? Councillor Hutchins.
So do we not normally have the library come to us with budget requests? So would it not be appropriate to have to delay this until we have a library representative come forward and bring us some information?
So thank you. We did ask the library CAO and or somebody from the library to attend. They were not able to make it today. The intent here is the full business case could come forward. We do have further information on this. We will welcome them to do a short presentation, but given that I know we have no right to dictate what they propose, but council does have a budgetary opportunity here to comment. And the feeling is that given all of the additional considerations that this should be included in here for budget consideration, I suspect that will probably come forward and it will be up to the library to defend their ask. But I thought it was really important that this be looked at in consideration because, as you are aware, there are a number of other staffing requests, including some that will be coming forward from our police services as well, that are being asked to be funded through the tax levy.
And with the library, I may have, just to be clear, council there's the final approval of the library budget. We can make these recommendations back to them or give them suggestions. Yes, no, keep it in. It's not going to get passed, take it out. Slightly different than what the police, under the Police Services Act, the Library Act, council has the final approval of the library budget and can make adjustments. Okay. So the first one is this part-time library assistant. And thank you for that explanation. Yeah, I did. Because it seemed that it was for 1 hour. If it was 52 weeks in Ayton, that was about, my figuring was somewhere around $375 an hour. I was going to apply, but it's on other activities that are included into this. I'm going to make a comment that a library is into a number of recreational activities. And I have some concern about them drifting from their core responsibilities. And this may be one of the cases here. Any other thoughts? Keep it in, keep it out. Joyce?
Well, instead of increasing Ayton's hours, what about taking away an hour from Durham and Newstead? Just a recommendation or just a thought.
That'll get back to the library. I can see a couple of board members jotting that down. One of them may even been run off and a way to do that right now. Any comments? Any other comments on this one? Asked to be left in or taken out. Doug?
Yeah, I have some questions too, like library website refresh, $4,000, not a big cost, but just curious why that wouldn't be, they wouldn't be able to find that in their budget somehow to do that. Or use some of their volunteer, I know the Friends of the Library have some funds that they could use. I'm not sure what the phone system update, I don't know why their phones are any different than any other phones, but to integrate them with the library and the municipal office, I don't know what that's all about. So I need more information on that one. And yeah, I don't know. And I agree with Councillor Noon that maybe we look at decreasing Durham and put extra staff into Ayton if that's necessary to keep things status quo. So just have some questions.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mayor Echo, excuse me, so to keep consistent with what we've been doing here this morning, the recommendation would be to leave this on and request a business case study. I think would be the motion that the clerk would probably be looking for. And I would so move that.
Is that on all three of these and or just part-time libraries?
I would bundle all three together and then that should have a delegation like we've done in the past years. And I'm hoping that's where we'd end up so we can review the whole request.
Okay. That was moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hutchison? No, sorry, I'm gonna take Councillor Shea. Jeff's hand come up there, but haven't got him onto the minutes a whole lot yet, so thank you, Jeff. To second that motion. Any further comments? Doug Townsend.
I just have a question and maybe the clerk can help me with this. Because I know there's been talk of a municipal website update. And I've often thought, is there any way, because I mean, municipality has a website, library has a website, police have a website, fire's got, like, is there any way that we can incorporate that all into one? And maybe save some dollars?
Through miracles to
Go ahead.
council. I don't know that it would save dollars per se. The library's website is a little bit more robust in terms of the modules that they have in terms of investigating what books they have available, signing things out, placing holds. So we don't, in our current municipal website, have those capabilities. I'm not saying that we couldn't incorporate them, but it would come at a cost. And I would anticipate that the cost wouldn't be less than $4,000.
Okay. I think some of the feeling of the discussion around here is we'll get back to the library board and the library manager, CEO. Not sure just what Kim's title is. But, okay. Joyce.
So just for clarification, it's saying increase Ayton Branch houses by 1 hour. It's not a new staff person.
Thank you. Through you, that was a typo. It should say hours. So they wanted to increase the hours by 1 hour at the Ayton branch. They also want to hire a part-time programming assistant as well. And that was the part that somehow didn't get into the report. It got cut
Okay.
off.
Okay. No further questions on the library one. The motion is to have a bit more information come back. We'll leave it in until for the report to come back. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Getting close to the end. Well, this will be the best. Save that for last. No, he's not going to like that. So the last one is on police. It's in your report, Michelle. But you've got both hands handed to you. Chief Martin? You've got two in here for one for a constable and, or two constables to be hired in 2025.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to go over our budget requests, I apologize, there aren't board members here. This proposal has been discussed with the board. We were in a state of flux with the board under the new regulations in terms of training and such, so we did not have enough for a quorum, but the items that I will present have been tentatively approved by the two members of our police services board, but I'll have to come back when we have a more fuller quorum to be approved accordingly. Just to touch on a couple of things that have been said here, and I just want to be clear, we're looking at this as an infrastructure move for us. Any services, facilities, and when I say services being physical, cyber, or human, they are all infrastructure for the community. And as I said many times during budgets, having an engaged and healthy police service is key to having a healthy and thriving community, and I will stand by those comments as we go along. We talked, Councillor Shea did make mentions of a lean and efficient. We are a lean and efficient police service, but as April 1st this year, our entire world changed. The Comprehensive Community Safety and Policing Act came into effect August 1st, 2024. It is the first change since 1990 to the Police Services Act, and it is a big change. We have new responsibilities. The four cornerstones that we have to carry out have not changed since the Police Services Act. Our core responsibilities are crime prevention, law enforcement, or emergency response and assistance of victims of crime. Crime prevention has been moved from law enforcement up because they're putting much more focus on preventing crimes through the community and safety well-being plans and things like that. For our budget, we have added some stuff onto our training accounts simply because we're now facing mandatory training. We have added some money back onto our equipment accounts because we are forced to purchase equipment. The province has put into its regulations, and there are some uniform changes to some of our staff because some staff members can no longer carry or wear red stripes. They have to be purple at the present time. With every other change that has come down the pipe, we have not seen any funding from the provincial government to assist us with these changes. And when we ask about it, we are told that there is no funding coming to the smaller municipal services, even though we continue to complain about it. What is coming up in 2025 for us is the Ontario Police Technology Information Cooperative is changing their entire database to a universal app for niche reporting. The cost to that for us right now are unknown, but we do know that every member of the police service is going to have a minimum of 4 days training to understand it. We will have to start this in April, and the province's expectations, it will be completed and done by December of 2025. They decided to do it over May, June, July, and August, which is going to be a very large challenge for a smaller rural service that sees a major influx in its calls, but we'll work through that. Next generation CPIC, again, we do have no ideas what the cost. This is a federal government initiative. They'll be changing our entire police information system. We do not know what the costs are going to be there. For us, COVID has not stopped. The Ministry of the Attorney General downloaded all court and bail hearings to us. We have to hold them in our own police station now. We always, in the past, have gone over our grant. They supply us for funding for this. It is putting us in a hole. It is impossible to determine how many prisoners we're going to have. However, right now we're running at about an 8 and 9 hour delay in the courts. So that is now taking a member who is sitting there all day long, waiting for the whim of the courts to have the bail hearings, major drain on our staffing, and it is getting more and more problematic. The other night, we had 4 parties in custody. We had to do 4 bail hearings. It took a day and a half for us to get those all processed properly. The Chief Justice of Ontario has changed the disclosure rules on us. We don't know what the final report is going to be, but it has put a lot more of the disclosure and vetting of our forms onto the police service. With everything that's come out of the new Police Services Act, the community say CSPA, my apologies, all of our procedures have to be rewritten. Reporting requirements to the board and the province have changed. We now have to have a senior officer on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have to put together a diversity plan with our provincial board appointees and municipal council for the West Grey area. We are facing challenges in our investigations. They're becoming much more technical. We are seeing a major rise in drug trafficking, fraud, child pornography, and intimate partner violence and hate crimes in our municipality. Those are very technologically based investigations, and our numbers are spending a lot of time writing production orders and judicial authorizations to simply get the information we need. I am not going to continue on down the path. The sky is falling. It makes no sense, but we're under a lot of pressures right now. We also have 3 members off. 1 is an unknown. 2 are facing significant injuries, and we'll be looking at a long-term recovery due to things that have happened to them at work. And we are asking for 1 new constable in January. It will be a recruit because it's a cost-saving measure to bring on to staff to try to deal with some of the pressures that we're facing. We also went through a competition to promote 2 sergeants to meet the supervision requirements under the new CSPA. Both of those sergeants are now off on various leaves. And we are asking for another recruit in September. It breaks it up and brings the burden down on the ratepayers, simply so we can continue status quo, what we're doing as a police service, and to meet the requirements that are being dropped on us in terms of the new legislative requirements coming from the Community Safety and Policing Act. Again, no money has been offloaded to us for that. Just for some comments that have been made before, 90% of my budget is salaries and benefits. I have 10% of my budget left to buy fuel, do this training, buy the equipment, do vehicle repairs, purchase supplies, train in use of force, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our budget is tight. We do not want to be the ones that are breaking the bank, but we do need more staff to make sure that we can provide adequate and effective policing to the community of West Grey. That's what I have, subject to any questions from yourself or any member of council present, your worship.
Let the questions begin. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and through you to, well, I guess maybe Director Mike, you can help me with this. The request here, do we know that percentage, what that would look like, or is that not a fair question for you to put that together?
I have that.
You have that, sir? Okay, perfect. I apologize, Director Mike. Go over to the chief.
You can turn a mic on.
Turn that mic on. I'll turn.
Our board was presented with 4 options. We called it the gold, platinum, silver package. Went through. I might as well go through them. Status quo, with nothing else would be a 3.5% increase. That's not hiring anyone. That's simply for negotiated wages and to keep our lights on. We put forth a proposal for one constable. It was a 5.4% increase. The two constables, both being recruits, broken up in the spring and fall intakes, equals a 6% increase. The one option that we decided not to go with does include one special constable to take the issues off court, but that is 8.3, and we determined that was too much to come to council with. So we went with the 6% increase, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Chief Martin. So I think in lieu of the fact of some of the services that our surrounding municipalities are doing, and we've heard numbers of 21, 23, and north of that from their police services that they use, and it's under-serviced dramatically. I think it's all about the safety of the community is very important. I think that our existing police force is doing a fantastic job at that. We're hearing lots of good things through the school and the community. I'm not going to speak to our crime rate. I feel fairly comfortable myself living in this West Grey, and I think anybody else would, because I think it's pretty minimal. So I am all about proactive approach to policing. I have been, that's my stance. So I would certainly support this because I think we have to have that succession planning, and we have to support police services that are taking care of our community. So I would certainly, when it's time, well, I can put the motion forward now that I would recommend that we support this. Thank you.
Councillor Townsend would second that motion then to include that in the police package that will be coming forward to us as well. You would comment, Chief.
Just to answer the deputy mayor's questions, our crime severity index, the average for Ontario is 61. We're sitting at about 49. This is the third year we've seen consecutive drops in our crime severity index. The challenge with that is while our crime severity drops, we saw a 25% increase in violent crimes in our community last year. And we look at our comparators, we're sitting at 49, and it's a very hard thing to articulate when you're measuring crime severity just because of the formula government uses. But if we look at our comparators in the area, Owen Sound's crime rate is at 123. Hanover is at 96. And Saugeen Shore is at 55. So out of the municipal services, we have the lowest crime severity index in West Grey, but the areas that are policed by the OPP have not been released.
Okay. Thanks for the update, Chief. Jeffrey. Councillor Shea.
Yes, thanks. A couple of questions. One, I don't understand why the Police Service Board hasn't approved this to come forward.
Chief.
To answer your questions, Mr. Shea, we had some reporting issues with the mandatory training that our Police Services Board had to do. Two members had completed the training. We had not received the report back from the Solicitor General's office and being our zone advisor. And we were requested by the CAO to have something put together for this meeting. So we put our collective hats on and came up with an approval. It will be approved at our November meeting when it goes forward, subject to the other two members of the board that will be present if they vote for it. But we simply had to get it done to meet the time standards that were put on us by the municipality and not single it out. We've been working on it. There's some transition with the new legislation that we're trying to meet. And I was remiss, and I apologize for not thanking our Director of Finance and the Police Services Board Secretary Webb for all their assistance to put this together like I normally do.
Further, you described, Chief, several proposals that were considered and described them as platinum, gold, silver, and I don't know what the fourth one was, paper, wood. This was the second one, so I assume this is the gold level package that we're considering?
I despise the words platinum, gold, silver, and bronze that was put onto it. This is the budget I'm presenting that will continue to ensure that we have adequate and effective policing in our municipality.
I'm sorry, I thought you used those words.
I put the words forward saying this is the way it was described by the Police Services Board, Councillor.
Oh, so the Police Services Board considers this the gold package?
I can't speak for the members of the Police Services Board that were at that meeting, but that's the way we decided to list all four of them rather than option number 1, option number 2, option number 3, or option number 4.
Okay. The deputy mayor made a comment that this was going to help with succession planning. I don't believe that adding 2 new positions has anything to do with succession planning. Am I correct in that regard?
No, you are not correct in that regard. These 2 recruits will be coming in. They will do 30 years service. We are looking at a situation due to hiring trends that we are going to lose about 45% of our police service in 2031 due to retirements. We need to start planning for that now rather than waiting until 2031 and coming in and telling you that I need to hire 50 new officers and watch council at the time lose their mind.
But as officers retire, do you not have the authority to just replace them? You don't have to come to council for approval to replace someone who's retired, do you?
I will get permission of my board because my board now under the new CSPA must give me permission to hire and fire because they are the new regulatory body that decides who's appointed on to police service.
I guess I'm being a little bit unclear because what I'm seeing is that these 2 new positions actually grow the force. Is that not accurate?
Yes, that's what I said because we needed to relieve some of the pressures on our front line. And when you look at certain reports, in particular the coroner's report, the biggest cause of occupational stress and leave from work are overwork and overburdening our police service, leading to causes of the WSIB claims for presumptive stress.
And I think the deputy mayor also, or somebody asked for a percentage from the director of finance. And I believe the percentage that they were looking for, and the percentage that I would be looking for, is how much would adding these 2 new officers impact our budget percentage-wise, director of finance?
Through you, Mayor. So if you're talking about like the impact on the tax levy, it would be another 117,959 or 0.82 of a tax levy percent. If that's what we were looking for.
And that's with 1 position just being partially annualized.
Correct. That's with 1 starting in September and 1 starting in January. Yeah.
And you said that was 0.82%?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shea. Jamie, you want to jump in here?
Through your miracles, yes, I was just going to read back the motion, but just for clarity, to the Director of Finance, I had 118,959 based on the 2 numbers in the chart. So I have that in consideration of staff report 2025 additional items for budget consideration. Council directs staff to include $118,959,000 for 2 additional police constables as outlined in the report in the 2025 draft budget. I believe that was the essence of the motion as proposed by the deputy mayor and Councillor Townsend.
Yeah. Councillor Hutchison, Doug?
Yeah, can we approve this given that the board hasn't officially approved it? Like, do we have to wait until the board comes back on this, or it's conditional, I guess, if we how we want to do this?
Because this would,
I'm looking at Carrie.
if you're going to pass your motion as it was read, it provides direction back to the board. Ultimately, the budget isn't finalized till we pass the budget bylaw. So things can still get batted back and forth regardless of all your decisions that you make today. You can still change until that budget bylaw is passed. Once that's passed, then that's your final operating version. But this would provide some direction to the board when they are considering at their next board meeting.
Further, Doug?
My only concern is that we're giving direction to the board and we can't really do that, can we? They're a separate entity and
That's where this guy wants to make a comment.
Three Miracles, I would suggest that this is not council providing direction to the Police Services Board, but rather taking the proposal as the proposals and the considerations that have been discussed with the police services to date and incorporating those numbers that they've provided us into the draft budget. If something changes when the board is fully constituted and can recommend that budget to council for consideration, then council can address that new number at the time if it's different from this number. What this does today is just allows us to present a fulsome budget based on council's direction provided today with everything that's been considered this morning. So it would include this number for council's consideration at a future meeting. And again, as I said, if the number is different from what it is today, council still has that opportunity to make adjustments to its budget before the bylaws passed.
Councillor Shay, last comment?
To Councillor Hutchinson's point, the board, as I understand it, has discussed four levels of possible funding. This is one of them. The board has not yet made a decision of which one of the four levels it wants to propose. If we say we're willing to fund the second most expensive one, it's very unlikely that the board is going to come back to us and say, yeah, we want the third most expensive, or we want the least expensive one. So my recommendation would be that we should say to the we should say that we are willing to entertain one of the four budget recommendations that the board is discussing currently, but not approve a certain one until the board has decided which one they want to approve. So can I propose an amendment to the motion, clerk?
That would be a new motion, I believe, but go ahead, Jamie.
Three Miracles, yes, I would agree with that comment that would be considered a new motion. If what you're looking to do by amending this motion would be change the number, that would be germane to the motion that's on the floor right now and could be done. But outside of that, what you're proposing, Councillor Shay, would be a new motion and would not be in order at this time.
Well, then I would suggest that if this motion fails, that we pass a motion that would approve a more generic increase to the police service budget, which I would move immediately following the failure of this motion.
Yep, that's what will happen if this one does fail. Would be the procedural way. No further questions, so I'm going to call the question. Motion on the floor is to accept moving forward the proposal from the police services for the proposed budget. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay. All right. That's about all that we have on reports. Just one quick question for Carrie. And this is more for information concerning the budget. There was a report released yesterday, or communications came from our MPP, I don't know which one, the OSIF funding come out. We, West Grace, Carrie, we said this morning was about 58,000 more. I asked Carrie this morning, and so our OSIF funding, which is germane to capital spending, the province is sending us another 58,000 for capital spending this coming year. A guardrail on the bridge, yes. Maybe two posts at 58,000. Okay. Is there any other revenue increases This was all about expenses on this one. Is there anything else on revenue increases that we could speak about? Carrie?
At this point, there's other revenue losses that will be probably, as I mentioned earlier, with the waste management side. But we will continue to look at it as we prepare your detailed line by line, but I'm not projecting any significant net difference in a lot of those.
Okay. And that's getting slightly off the agenda, and Jamie wants to be able to have lunch. So before he gives me the hook and tells me I've gone too far off the agenda, we have down to number 5, bylaws. One bylaw is the confirming of today's actions. We have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Noon. The confirming bylaw of the proceedings of council today. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. With that, all business completed on the agenda. I'll move that, or I won't move, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone, for joining.